It sounds like Price is Right there for a minute. We had a request. Tina said Dirt was wanting 5 minutes if he comes by, right? So we might give him 5 minutes to present something for Elida. I have no idea. Did he tell you what it was?
I'm sorry, Elida. I don't know, Stuart's coming by to do something. Unless it's about the LGF, and that's the only thing I do.
Yep. Are you go? Y'all was supposed to have all this done this morning while I was gone, so I'd be quiet. Hey, Mom. How much sugar's in it? Well, you gotta look how much sugar's in it. Club soda. That's what I drink. I do too. I put something in it, but I drink club soda. Club soda has no sugar, nothing in it. Gosh.
So if Sheriff Parker is presenting on their behalf, I had or texted last. Javier had asked about what time. About 1. I said about 1:30. So I think Sheriff's Office can go next. Oh, poor guy.
It's his letter for that.
Thank you. So Sheriff's Office is going to be right in front of the rural GIS and flood that we were at. Theirs is one right above it. So it's the 40108. Thank you.
Okay, so basically.
Is that good? Is there any discussion about the fuel or why we put it the way we did? Okay. And I'll move on to the computer software. That was for the update, right?
left this one in here. He wanted to leave it, but over on the recovery funds, when we get to that in just a second, you can talk about the Tyler,
Okay.
if that works.
Yeah.
The letter you just gave him, if you want to explore that, because that's
Yes.
up here in personnel.
So again, Javier, he and I discussed this. It was my goal to put in for an additional employee or to replace the certified position that we haven't had. Again, as I'm retiring in December, I let Javier decide on that, so he put in this letter, and it addresses what he intends to do with that $11,000. And I think him and Amber decided to make a separate line item altogether for it to cover community events. And in your letter, and again, I won't read it to you, I'll let you read it yourself, but it basically wants to give overtime to have a deputy more um, in place for community events, school events, the fair, jamboree, different type things. He's also got in here that we were getting grants through the DWI for the pedal carts for community events as well. We did get those in. They got those in the drunk goggles. So this is just more of a community policing overtime line that he wants to be able to pay guys to sign up for, to go out and get more involved at sporting events in the schools and that type of thing throughout the community, to be more seen throughout the community. So that would be that line item would only cover overtime for those types of events. If you want me to, I can go through this all front to back if you want, but in the interest of time, I just printed it all out to you so you could read his idea behind it. Anybody got any questions about that?
So our office handles the liability insurance and the vehicle insurance and such. What we have been advised by the insurance company is that we will need to budget for increases to the sheriff's office liability due to the recent claims and settlements and everything that they've forced. So they are telling us that budget approximately 20% increase, and we will see that over several years. Instead of them coming in and increasing our premium 100 or 200% all in once, they know we can't handle as well that. So they just said that they will try to phase it in over the years to get us to the point where we are solvent in the insurance claim, since it's a pool insurance. So that is budgeted here based on, we did roughly a 20% increase from what fiscal year 22 was in terms of the liability.
And Amber, on this printout, when I printed it out, it didn't catch the entire side of it. So
Oh, sorry. Which
if
one
you
am I
would
missing?
point out, no, if you would just point out the ones that we went up on that I can address. I don't think there was many more.
Mm-mm. No, it was the,
Oh,
we
the
have
building.
the-
You want me to discuss that building?
well, and the junior bill allows for 4 units. So that's the only other thing that y'all have in capital. And then here, yes, the vehicle storage or some kind of.
So in our old building, obviously, well, I say our old building, in the building that we had leased through the state out there on Airport Road, we had an excess of room out there. We had a fenced in area that we could store vehicles. We had a large gymnasium. On several occasions during some of our homicides and whatnot, when we had to store a vehicle for evidence, we had the facility to keep that. Being at this facility over here, as of right now, we do not. So we're hoping to either repurpose, and I don't know how that's going to go with the animal control yet, how the negotiations and everything's going to go, but find a spot basically for storage for our vehicles. And if we cannot, then this would be for a building for that purpose.
Yes. So we had Gary get pricing on the metal, and he said the 40 by 40, like a Mueller kit or a My Metal kit, is about 50,000, and then the concrete's going to be about 15 to 20,000. Now that doesn't include the labor to install or to erect or to do anything like that. It's just we wanted to have some kind of idea that it would be probably somewhere between 75 and 100. Lieutenant Sanchez just shared, well, if so as we know, that the city has expressed the intent to go out for RFP for privatizing the animal shelter. Both myself, Commissioner Savage, met with them on Monday and talked about, how we could do the joint RFP together, or what that could look like. If they do privatize, currently right now we have an agreement with them for like 50 years. So if they do privatize and that changes, and we wanted to be part of that because we have a building that we could use potentially as part of the negotiation for those services. But if they privatize and they go with a company that doesn't need a facility, then the sheriff's office could utilize that with some minor. Javier thought there might need to be some minor work done or something. I don't know for sure what's in there. There's a roll-up
Yes,
barn.
it's pretty good size in there. I mean, it's got I would say you could probably, once all the kennels and everything are cleared out of there, if that became an option, you could probably get 6 regular sized vehicles in there. They would in close proximity. I mean, it wouldn't be like you could have a ton of room, but I think that would suffice if we did get that.
And Sheriff Rick shared about the issue of having them out and the storage, and that they were cutting the new fence to get to the catalytic murders, to get to some
Yes.
of the evidence cars as well as theirs.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that and I'm sure you've already been made aware, we got a tort claim from one of the people we arrested in that where we're storing some vehicles. And now that they are cutting the county fence and going out there to steal catalytic converters and whatnot, that's just going to be a furtherance of more torts to come, because when we have custody, and I can tell you that, of course, this nowhere comes near it, but when it comes to a vehicle search right now, if we have a commercial vehicle that we bring in for suspected narcotics, which happens fairly often in law enforcement, um, during inclement weather, it's next to impossible to do the kind of search we need to on these vehicles. Um, you know, the best case scenario would be a building with a lift in it as well. But again, that could be further down the road. I'm just telling you this as a need for law enforcement and what they need to do for future purposes. It would be very nice if they had a facility where they could store those vehicles and also be able to lift those to do a thorough search of them, because a lot of times there's mechanic work involved, dropping gas tanks, pulling out undercarriages, that kind of stuff, to find hidden narcotics inside these vehicles. Also, for homicide investigations, we've recovered trace evidence of blood, hair, that kind of stuff from the underside of vehicles. And it just makes it really difficult whenever you're down on the dirt and in the mud and possibly raining or 105 degrees outside. Just take the elements into account. And then those guys are trying to do that with those type of elements too. So again, I realize that's not something I'll see before I retire, but I'm telling you as a courtesy for whoever the future sheriff is, that they really do need that at some point soon. It would be very beneficial anyways. What else do I need to discuss, Amber?
Basically covered general fund. We just kind of need to touch on like the evidence fund. It just has the allotted monies that are in there currently, the cash balance, and then we modify that as y'all have intercepts or
For the new
receipts.
storage, for the
Nope.
evidence?
For the evidence itself. So if y'all, like when y'all went and had to sell and you had to go through all of that stuff, it's all in there. But we have to have some kind of budget. And I think that's
Trying to
just
find
cash
that on my
balance.
list.
That's a pretty easy one. LEPF would be the other one if you wanted to touch on anything because the increase.
Yes, and I don't know if that's why Deward's here or not, but the LEPF, it's already been outlined. We did get an increase in that, and it's my understanding that y'all have already approved everything involving LEPF, but does anybody have any questions on it?
And then the other one that y'all have that we have to present, I think is the traffic grants. There you go.
For the grant?
Yes, sir. Sorry.
I don't guess I'm familiar with that. Oh, the increase in it?
No, so this is just the grant y'all get. Javier had just texted and said about 14,000 will be the rollover. The 4,000 for NDWI grants and 10,000 for days and nights. Because I think y'all don't get them all done before the end of the fiscal year, and then that rolls. Because maybe it's on a federal calendar year
It does.
or something.
It does roll one time, and if we don't expend it by the second time, then we lose it completely. And I know due to the amount of homicide cases we had this year and other major crimes, that a lot of that did not get worked because they were working overtime in other areas. So that would explain that. Yeah, they have to sign up for those in 4-hour blocks, and they're specifically targeting, yes, certain activities. And so we did really good on those the last couple of years, and they increased our funding somewhat, and then they added in because we had to quit the school program for a while for the driver's education. We always did the impaired goggles and the driving stuff. We did different activities with the kids, but now we did get that funding for the pedal carts, and we got those in, and we're going to start getting back into the schools with that program again now. One other thing that I need to bring up too, and I guess I was supposed to do it in the budget meeting. I thought it was going to be an agenda item, was for we got several requests from the major crimes unit, the task force, because we've been several times, several of our investigations have been going through the sheriff's office. Whenever we have a homicide here, we bring in approximately 30 investigators, give or take, depending on the crime scene, and they all have to work out of the sheriff's office. We don't have enough interview rooms. In the interview room that we do have that's recorded with camera systems is set up with the intoxilizer machine, which is a very delicate piece of equipment that has to be tuned. And it's kind of like it has to have a maintained custody. You have to be able to testify in court that nobody's had access to that machine. And right now, our interview room is also our intoxilizer room. So that presents somewhat of a problem. We need more space for more interview rooms, and we need more space for the investigators to house the investigators themselves. Originally, we thought our conference room would be big enough, but during a major crime, that office is just insanely packed with people, between the regular patrol deputies and then all the investigators from Curry, Clovis, the DA's office, Portales PD, all of them coming in. So we did discuss some options with Ms. Hamilton. One of the thoughts would be to the dispatch room is clearing out. They're moving to the PD at some point. I understand that the jail had already requested that room, so I would be open to options. I don't want to, obviously, we've got a great friend with the detention center, good communications, and I'd like to keep that. So I don't really want it to be a contest between us and the detention center on who gets that room. I'm telling you that we have had requests from the district attorney, the major crime scene, or the major crimes unit commander, and myself. They asked me to request additional room. I don't know what that answer is. It would be beneficial because that room where dispatch is so closely housed to the sheriff's office. But again, I don't want to be in a competition with the detention center over that. So any type of feedback or options that anybody has, I would love to have that. If not, that will definitely be something that we might have to seek at a later date for more room. Violent crimes are on the rise big time. We've had more violent crimes in the last few years than I've ever experienced in my 24 years in law enforcement. So we need to come up to date for our law enforcement services. When we're packed in there like that, I don't feel like we can do an adequate investigation for the victims in our community and what we need to do for them. So we need more housing available for that purpose.
So in y'all's packet included behind the sheriff's office budget is two letters that have been received, one from the district attorney's office and one from the district attorney investigator, and those are included in your budget. And then I know Sheriff Parker sent the email to everyone with the initial request. So y'all have that on email, but the other two letters that were sent to me are provided in your budget books.
I have a quick question for you, Sheriff. Does the larger conference room, does it need to be close to the evidence building, or if we found a building somewhere
So
that would suit?
And if you'd like to come over to the sheriff's office, I'll be glad to give you a tour through exactly how we have it laid out right now. But when you come in through our end of the hallway, there's a set of double doors there. When you come in there, there's Shanna's office, then my office, and then off of that south wall is the evidence room where they store everything. I think you've seen that before.
I've been through it.
And then in the other room, that's where they prepare the evidence and then put it into the lock boxes and whatnot, and then drop the key so it's gone. But the conference room where we have it now is across the hallway to the north. Across there's a small work area / break room that is the copier and printer, copier and stuff is in there. And then it goes into the deputy's work area. Then it goes into the conference room from there, which is where the major crimes unit is housed during those investigations. The dispatch wall is on the opposite side of that wall.
Well, my question really is, if you have a major crime still and y'all are needing a larger conference area, if it was away from that location, like we had another building with a bigger room, would that work, or does your conference room need to be where you can go back and forth to evidence?
It would work. It would be better than the current situation. I guess in my mind's eye, the best scenario would be within, because we have all of our computers. We have access to the evidence vault. We have access to everything there. But if we had to make an off-site facility work, we could do that as well. We just would have to add in the extra interview rooms, recording equipment, that kind of stuff.
Okay, that's what.
Is there any more questions?
You built store the vehicle. You gotta have a place in there to do that sort of stuff. Or is that just the only thing you do with that building would be just store vehicles?
With the existing plan, I think it would just be used for storage. I don't think that we could combine the two. If we expanded on that plan, then we could do something else.
But if it worked out to where the animal shelter was used for storage of their vehicles there for luxury.
I haven't been in the animal shelter in a while, but to my recollection, if there is enough room, there would be considerable renovations that would have to be done in order to make that happen. Because if I recall right, and Amber, you might have been out there since before me, but there's the shelters in the back, and then there's some office areas and different supply rooms and stuff up front that if opened up, possibly, but I'm not. I'd have to go look at it again to answer that definitely. I know there's also a large incinerator in there somewhere that would have to be taken out at some point as well. So,
Put your evidence in it.
yeah, that might be an option for destruction of evidence at some point.
Just like we were talking about earlier when we were talking about what we were going to do with the bottom house and then the back room on that. Is this kind of where you were going with that?
So in somewhat ways, yes, but the sheriff's office hadn't been able to walk through the bottom house yet. And if the sheriff or lieutenant was trying to get to it, and obviously, if he's not feeling good, we do not wait.
Javier said that he went and looked at it briefly, but said that there would be a lot.
It would need to be a lot of renovations, but
Yeah.
Johnny just presented the plan because we have the building and he talked about, we need an EOC, but we don't have to have the EOC all the time, but the technology could be in there and then it could be utilized like multi-purpose. You have
Mhm.
like a big room area, you have like meeting space, you can have different stations, all of that kind of stuff. It can be built out to fit
Sure.
everyone's needs was kind of what he was outlining in terms of, because that we need an EOC on occasion. We need to have an EOC that can be designated. We just don't anticipate or we don't hope that we have to use it frequently. But he was just trying to talk about how to have it multi-purposed with different things. But we also talked about having the food bank that needs an option, and all of that would be behind a secure door. But I don't know what the limitations would be for any of your type events.
It would just have to be at certain points a standalone to where there was no access other than law enforcement. But when it wasn't in use, and I logistically that could be figured out. But during a major crimes activation, it would have to be a very restricted access. Yeah.
Could you have like if Mr. Montiel was housed in the front of the building, in front of the secure area, then keeping everything secure back, law enforcement access, would that still be?
I think
I
that
know
would
you
be
said
fine.
standalone, but would that be okay if he was?
Yeah, I think that would be fine. As long as there's that secure spot in the back, I don't see any issues with that at all. If you don't have any further questions, is that everything, Amber?
The federal recovery funds about Tyler.
Now
in
this
the
is just
IT.
replacing our existing software, correct?
Mhm.
Yeah. So capers like Sleuth has been a problem since its inception. When capers first came in, they promised the world. They promised us to be able to interact with other organizations, Lee County, Chaves County, Portales PD, Eastern New Mexico University. Everybody went to capers at about the same time. And I can't remember what the original cost was. I want to say it was around $75,000 when we originally went to that, just for the software. And then it sounded they sold us a great theory. It just never came to fruition, and we've had problems with capers since we've started it. And now every organization that went to capers when we did has since moved off and went mainly to Tyler. And so this money would be to upgrade to the Tyler software for our records collection instead. When we had when Sleuth went bankrupt, we lost 6 or 7 years worth of data that we had compiled, which could have been, and I don't know if it ever was, but it could have been a pretty serious liability for Roosevelt County, as we're required to maintain all that. They guaranteed us that in the event of a server crashing or bankruptcy or anything like that, that they could send us a disk with all of our files on it. Well, they did, but it was encrypted, and somehow or another it got completely lost whenever IT tried to access those files through Sleuth. So we lost a ton of super valuable data on that. And as it stands, I think we'll be able to retrieve everything from capers at this point. I don't know how they stand business wise, as far as are they going to go bankrupt like Sleuth did? I don't know, but I just know that everybody seems to be having better luck with the Tyler system. So
Tyler for the clerk, the treasurer, the assessor, the administration. Like we're already very familiar with the Tyler footprint. This was something that we had talked about years past, but it was so expensive. The unique position we're in right now is, again, with the recovery funds, this is a permissible software upgrade that would be enhancing our overall, like for the sheriff's office, their process, the public access, all of that. It meets the requirements of what this 400-page document over here says, hey, you can consider your recovery funds for. So I asked Javier, I'm like, hey, let's get a quote and let's look at this again. I mean, if we can use it for IT and services, they clearly need a better option. And in your, I think in your binders, if not, I can get you a copy. But they just had a rough estimate of the software and what it would be. I don't know if they're loading all your old stuff in there. I couldn't understand that. Or if
Into-
you're just starting from new.
Yeah, it would be starting from new. We would have to maintain our files that we retrieve from
Okay.
Capers as well. To give you an idea how outdated Capers is also, every single one of my guys is issued it's almost like a key fob. It actually has a key ring on it. And whenever they access it, they got to push a button and it gives them a code to access their Capers files. Those get broke and lost all the time. And every single time they get broke and lost, it's $100. So we've spent thousands of dollars replacing those little things over the years since we've had it as well. And it's just, again, it's not performed near what they said it would when we purchased the system. And
And
it's hard to get any technical support from them, constantly having outages on it. So
We've had good results with all of that with the Tyler, haven't we?
we really have. And it's been one of those things that we've all wanted to navigate to. We just hadn't been able to find the funding to be able to move that direction. It's just been so. And the last quote we got, I thought was more than 50,000. I thought it was closer to like 100 when we first looked at it. But then the PD went to it, and I haven't heard how their reaction was or anything. I just know Lieutenant Sanchez shared it would be really nice because then all the data would talk, because they're using the Tyler system in dispatch and in their PSAP. The annual reoccurring fees are just about $6,200, so it's actually lower than your capers. That was the other thing that, there's a lot of one-time fees as far as the setup and the licensing and the training and the install and stuff, but your reoccurring fees are about $6,200 on this quote.
and Mrs. Hamilton's right. The first time we looked at Tyler, it was way more expensive than what that is. And I don't know. I think it has something to do with Roosevelt County already being licensed for it. So that's why it's a significant difference now.
And then Commissioner Lopez, did you want to ask about the drone situation and the 2 versus 1, the sharing versus not?
Have you guys discussed that?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No, we're just now on.
No,
federal
I
funds.
didn't know if you guys had discussed it and kind of waited for me to kind of give a,
Mm-mm.
we haven't brought it up yet, so.
And it's my understanding that drone was going to be purchased also through those funds as well. Yeah.
Okay, so my question, and it was not a concern, it was just a question because we're brainstorming the whole idea. Number one, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Number
Absolutely.
two, that's just the way with the future. Number two is we've got a lot of funds, which I need to address these funds once again after the sheriff is done and he's left and stuff. I've got a recommendation that I'm going to be giving to my fellow commissioners. What I had addressed, or what Mr. Montiel had stated when he was doing his spiel, kind of selling his whole proposal to us, was that he put the drone as one of his requests, and that it would be something that could be shared to the sheriff's department. Pretty good idea. I wouldn't say it was a great idea, because automatically I got red flags that came up. So my recommendation, since we do have all these rescue plan monies that we need to expend, the sunset on them is 4 years, is why wouldn't the sheriff request the drone standalone? And GIS, the Montiel's department, have their own drone. And a couple of things came up in my own mind. The legality of it, number one, if you had a shared drone through another department, you guys could be using it for criminal investigations or a lot of other things where it may come up in proceedings down the road or whatever. And I don't know if it was a good comparison, but I said that'd be like Johnny going out on his own where he knew there was a lot of rabid animals
and would borrow the K9 unit from our sheriff's department. It's not going to happen. So I didn't like the idea of us having one department with the drone and then maybe another department fine and dandy, but not the sheriff's department. I think that that should be a request that should be standalone through the sheriff's department. Get somebody licensed through the sheriff's department and utilize the drone through the sheriff's department without interference from any other department. That was my recommendation. So what they are requesting is, what's your feel on it?
I absolutely agree with you. I think Johnny's idea was a great idea to get that technology here. We have used drone technology in Roosevelt County 4 times over the last year, and each time we've used it, we've had to wait for them to come out of Hobbs and or Carlsbad to get here. They've been gracious enough to bring down drones to help us for searching for violent felons, that have absconded in the field or whatever, for different things. I agree. If we have a drone for the sheriff's office, it the best case scenario would be to have our own, and that would so we could have 24-hour, 7-day a week access to it. Um, because you never know when you're going to need it. We've searched for 2 missing bodies um, through borrowed aircrafts that we could have used drone technology for. Basically, when we have these types of scenarios, and like I said earlier, they're happening more and more frequently. We go into begging status with another agency or a friend that owns an airplane or something like that to get up in the air and conduct these operations. We've had them from 3 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning. We've had them at all hours of the day. So it would be inconvenient. And again, I don't know how likely it is, but if Johnny was out working with a drone all day long doing something and the need arose for us to have to go find him, reset, because those drone batteries, even with the technology they have, the ones that have the infrared and the spotlights like we would like to have on them, even those they only run for 30 minutes at a time. And so if Johnny's out using them and we didn't have a bank of those batteries sitting there waiting to go, it would be difficult. But it would be better than nothing. As far as court purposes, those have recording capabilities. They have tracking capabilities. So if you take off on foot and I find you hiding in some weeds, I can lock in on you and lock that drone. And if you start running again, I don't have to control it anymore because it's just going to track your movement and keep following you until I call it back or until we take you into custody. So how that would fall into play as far as evidence for court, having another agency use it, I'm not exactly sure yet, but it could pose some potential problems. I could see where it could.
Yeah, and that was my concern, because there's got to be licensure associated with each department that has drone capability. And without talking to Randy or a legal expert, I mean, I'm speculating myself. But the other thing I want to mention, now the sheriff is here, is that it's a sad reality, the world we live in, but the crime isn't slowing down.
No.
And it seems like the crime and criminals are ahead of the game. I know for a fact there's criminals out there that do have drone capability. So my thoughts is keeping up with the times, like I mentioned to you guys earlier. A drone, you cannot go wrong. Having it within our access, and I apologize again, guys. Access within our own sheriff's department, I think it's a win-win, cost effective, and I think it'll make their jobs a lot easier, or somewhat easier.
And I do. I own my own drone, and it's not one of the little toy store drones. It's one of the more expensive drones. It's not like the type of drone we would request. Mine just has an image stabilizing camera on it. But I use mine for private use mostly. I've used it a couple of times for sheriff's office stuff just because that was the best we could do at the time. But if you're flying these commercially, each person does have to be licensed, especially with Cannon Air Force Base right here. They regulate drone movement very seriously. Anything over, I think, 200 feet in the air, and sometimes those things would be flying higher than that in the event of a vehicle chase. If you were able to deploy a drone, I mean, it would have to fly at a minimum of 500 feet, maybe higher, depending on some of our obstacles in Roosevelt County. So But I can tell you that when Carlsbad and Hobbs brought it down, it's saved a lot of time. It's possibly saved injuries. We tracked a man with a gun one night and cornered him using the drone, and were able to deploy our men on him. He was armed with a gun, and it was 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. You all seen how high the grass is out here in the county? Well, you could walk an elephant into it and disappear, so we were able to deploy our guys safely on him and get him into custody with the use of that drone. So somebody could have got really hurt bad that night if we'd have had to send him in there blind.
Thank you for your feedback, Sheriff, and thank you, whoever mentioned, Mr. Chairman or Amber, for us to address it. I would have probably spaced it out with everything I've got going on, so thank you.
That's Amber's Javier.
Good, good.
Thank you all. I'll hang out for just a few minutes in case I'm needed for any more questions.
Mr. Chairman,
If I could have one more minute of just a few seconds of discussion, since I'm not taking notes, my hand's full already. I've been writing all my notes on my hand. But anyway, Amber, what I would like to request, because we are in such a unique situation right now, kind of historical, on that American Rescue Plan Act, the monies that we have available, could you kind of list all the projects within each department that has had proposed to us, projects or whatever it may be that qualify for those funds? That way, number one, most that we've had presented to us are very justifiable. They meet the criteria. The monies are there that we need to expend. So I would like to see that, and I'm not saying that those should be automatic approvals, but I think that they should be set on a separate platform. And that's, I'm speaking for myself only, guys, so you guys chime in if you guys need to.
Did you get all that, Amber? Mr. Dixon's here. I think he's wanting to speak upon something.
yeah, wait my turn.
Well, we got lots of people to go through, so I just heard five. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commission. Unlike everybody else, I'm not here asking for you to give me any money. I'm here trying to give you some. So, Elida's temporarily suspended our police department, yet we still have access to get that 45,000 LEPF funds. And there's a mechanism for me to transfer that to the county for them to use for equipment, training, limited amount of uses there. But, and I talked to Malin about signing an officer out there in return for that. He said they were just basically too short-handed to guarantee me anything there. But that they would continue to give us coverage there when you need it. But the only thing I would ask in return for that would be a 2-for-$1 swap, and where you guys would return me half of that, and we'd use it towards fire, EMS, our senior center, and our library, which are all services we provide for the county, or for county residents. So we would give you 45 and 22.5 back. And which may not be a lot this year, but next year that'll be 95,000.
I think that's something we'll have to discuss with legal and with the board to see if we
And
can
it's
do
all
that.
right
But I
with
mean,
it's fine with LEP efforts to do that. I've already discussed that with them. So
okay.
there'd have to be 2 separate JPAs, one for fire and rescue and senior and whatever that we've had in the past, and then one separate for the other 45,000 for the sheriff's department. If y'all want to, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine. I just need to know relatively soon, so if you're not interested, I can pursue something different.
Mr. Chairman, that's my question. The time frame. What is the time frame? Real soon is how's real soon?
By the end of the month,
We have a meeting on the 31st, don't we?
Yes. Would have to be an agenda item.
Right. So I realize that. I realize there's some things to be worked out, but that's my proposal. And oh, and in addition to that, for the fiscal year that covers, I've also got a brand new unit. Probably, got less than 2,000 miles on it. It's already equipped, radar, radios, everything that I would put on loan to the county during that time frame. It's a F-150, exactly like what the police department's driving.
I've got one more question. So is this permanent? You're not gonna have law enforcement in the town,
It would be for the next fiscal year. I won't always be the mayor there, and we'll have a new council just like you do, so it would be for the fiscal year 22, 23.
so we can actually speed through Elida now? That was a joke.
No.
Mayor, that was a joke.
Departments out there. We also have people that like to throw buckets out if you're going too fast. Various things like that. And I realize we'll also be dealing with the new sheriff halfway through the year, but we'll deal with that when the time comes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any comment?
Unless anybody has any questions.
My number one choice would be for you guys to let them hire a couple of more officers, and I would give you the entire amount. You could send somebody up there 20 hours a week. But he explained that's not a possibility right now.
Done that deal about the pickup Bobby one.
We also have a brand new unit. It's a F-150 fully equipped patrol unit that while this is in effect for the 22-23 fiscal year, we can put on loan to the county for y'all to use as your own. I think
He
it's got.
understands loan. He loans it, we're gonna give it back to him wore out.
That's fine. You can't wear it out in 1 year.
Oh,
But it only has.
our deputies cover lots of miles.
I think it has 1,200 miles on it.
So we
I looked
use
just
it
the other day. Yeah, for the fiscal year while this agreement's in place, it would be the county's. And I know y'all got money for new vehicles, but I'm sure you still could fit it in the fleet.
Absolutely.
It's a very nice unit. We probably have 50,000 in it.
And if that did happen and we did have that agreement, if the agreement went on again, like the next year, would the vehicle remain with that or?
That would be up to our council to decide that. I could make that decision on my own, but as long as we don't have a police department, I don't see why we wouldn't. And like I say, starting in July of 23, that won't be 45,000, that'll be 95,000. We'll be able to transfer unless something changes between now and then in the legislature, but I don't see that happening to you.
I do have one question though. I'm just out of curiosity, maybe you can clarify this, Amber, but I don't know, I don't understand exactly what it is you mean. I understand what you're going for, but if you gave us the 45,000 for that contract, how are you going to get back half of that? Because that money is strictly allotted for.
I don't want any of that back. That's all.
Right.
yours.
Well, I mean for the.
Right. Well, we already have an agreement with the county to furnish us EMS and fire money.
Just
I would
different
just
fund,
want,
general funding.
I would just want that
I
to
see what
be
you're saying.
half of that
Okay.
amount. A 2-for-1 swap, and we've done that with Perry County in the past with corrections funds and
I
because they had
understand.
environmental funds they couldn't use. Complete different agreement. It would be its own standalone agreement with you guys, and the other would just be up in that amount that we get already. But I mean, we would be fine using it for senior, library, and fire and EMS only for services that are actually benefiting county residents more than they are municipality already.
Okay.
Okay, so my apologies. I just have to ask, how does the village of or town of Elida, how are y'all gonna get double the LEPF that, because we're going up to the new rates, but 58,000 is, because it's 48 and then a 1,000 for each
Ours is
certified.
45,000 is what ours is. Or
Right,
is it
but you had
48 or
mentioned-
45?
It just went up.
It's going up to 45 starting in July. Starting July of 23, it's moving to 95 for every department in the state. Whether you have one officer or you've got 1,000, it's going to be 95,000 starting the fiscal year 23, 24. That was just passed in the legislature. And they're still restricted, just like the ones that they have now, to training, vehicles,
Equipment.
guns. We've also got guns and stuff, but I'm sure you guys are covered up in guns.
Sorry, I was just confused. I thought you meant this year, and I'm
No,
going,
it'd be
how is it so
45
much different
For this
than?
coming fiscal year,
Okay,
and the next fiscal year, if we haven't put a policeman back on duty, it'll be 95 for the following fiscal year.
thank you.
So, and if there's a possibility if I don't get an agreement this year, I won't have access to that 95 next year. If we have a lapse in there.
If you don't get an agreement this year, is the police department dissolved from here out, or how does that work?
No, just, I mean, that's, just like you guys, that's decided every year on budget from year to
You
year.
just
if we
lose
can
the
afford it.
funding for the time that you don't.
Right.
Okay.
Now, as long as I have an agreement with another department, whether it be you guys, neighboring municipality, state police, or whatever, that this continues on. If for some reason I don't, it would be suspended till I have a police department again. So, I checked on all of this a couple of days ago just to be sure I wasn't giving you false
Well,
information.
I'm glad you did.
And Mayor, who did you speak to at DFA?
I would have to look when I get back to my office.
Just curious, so I would know
Um,
who to connect with Randy.
Jolene something, I'm not sure. And she's the one that's actually over for the LEPF funds. Now, I didn't talk about the 2-for-1 swap because that doesn't have anything to do with their LEPF funds. That'll be, as far as transferring those and how those are continued or stopped or whatever. Because the others, just all I'm asking for is more in return for for the agreement we already have with you guys from year to year for fire and EMS. But I would like to broaden that a little because you guys used to fund our library, our senior center, and fire and EMS a little bit. Back in 13 or 14, that got cut to just fire and EMS. Any other questions?
Hmm.
Go ahead.
We have a list of them to go through today, but we'll have legal look at that and see.
We're pretty agreeable. And like I say,
I like to see
It's-
the funds stay in this part of the world.
I would too. And
So,
I mean,
I sure
state
don't want
police they're getting all kinds of new funding. We could do an agreement with them, but they've upped their funding to an enormous amount over the last year. So I would think our sheriff's department could use it more than they could.
It'd be wrong for us not to take advantage of this, but the bottom line is time is of essence. Again, I hate that saying, but it is. The only thing that's going to keep us from working the deal out is the fact that he said we have till the end of the month, and that's just may
Well,
not be
That
feasible
was from
unless we call a special meeting.
that was from LEPF lady that she would like to have this agreement. Malin and I got the first paperwork that had to be in done Monday. They just certified that the Roosevelt County Sheriff's Department meets all of the requirements to receive LEPF funds. That's all that was with it.
It's the same form we have to sign every year for.
So we have that
They
in.
won't
I just have to
expect-
sign it on the behalf.
They won't affect your funds any. I mean,
It's just
it just, I mean,
increase.
later. I mean, I don't want to
And-
cut his funds down the road.
This isn't, and I don't want to give this money to you guys and you guys turn around and take that 45,000 out of his budget. I want it to actually go to the sheriff's department and up their budget 45,000 or whatever.
Oh, man, we wouldn't do that. That's
Well, I
ulterior
know.
motives. Come on,
Not this
man.
commission and not the sheriff, but I know in the past that that's happened.
My dad did that.
I don't know how long ago it was.
He was just
Just a
checking.
past sheriff told me that actually happened. I don't want that happening. I want the sheriff to get the benefit of it. I thought of one other thing I was gonna bring up, but I can't remember now. It's not been very important.
Okay.
And Mayor, you mentioned a joint powers agreement, but because of all the time constraints and everything and the way that that has to go through the Department of Finance, I've seen where Curry County actually did an intergovernmental agreement, I believe, with Grady Kent. So could we do an intergovernmental
Yes,
agreement?
well, that's same thing. I mean, this isn't, that's what I was gonna say. This isn't anything new. It's gone on all over the state with other departments and other
Okay.
municipalities. Grady and Curry County does it, and you're right, it is intergovernmental agreement.
It's just
Yeah,
that way
do
they
it
don't have
there.
to go.
There's, the municipal leagues tell me when we were talking about this last year that there's several municipalities that are either giving their funds to a neighboring municipality or the sheriff's department or state police. So it's,
Oh.
I mean, we're not talking
Cool.
about anything new here that's not already happening
No, we're gonna hear next
places.
In actuality, it's new to me, and I think it's great news. I've never seen this happen. Had y'all?
one. I've
So
never.
it is new to me.
So Grady's
So
been
we
doing
should
it
we
for-
should take advantage of it if we
for 10
can.
years, 12 years. I don't know how long it's been.
Since I've never seen that, I sure wanna.
Closer to 16 years now.
Yeah, so they've
Sure.
been doing it year after year after year.
Whoa.
I think
if we have
up
to,
there
we'll have
they
a special
actually
meeting.
have
Three of us. Can
A
go.
deputy assigned to Grady, don't they? They don't not. At one time, they actually had a deputy that was his district up there, and he was on duty up in that area, but Malin said it's not like.
When the
that.
Grady officer left Grady, he went to work for the sheriff's office, so he worked like 4 hours every day out of Grady.
Right.
So, but he was still subject to calls to
And
other parts of the county.
Melrose did that for a while as well. I don't think they still are. I think they have their
I
own,
think they got their own back.
their own diligence. So.
All right. Well, thank you, Dirk.
Yep, thank you.
Well, I'm glad we slipped you in. It might be a good deal here for us all.
I hope so. I like to get along. I
Yeah.
how I act. Sometimes I do try to get along. See you guys.
Mayor. I keep calling him Dirk. All right. Who you have on your list? You want to run up here now?
Thank you.
Malin, thank you. I'm going to tell him we'll have a drone race one day. I can outrun him. He's got a drone. I got a drone. We'll have a drone race. Put up barrels.
Do you got my slide?
I got one. I'll bring you over some. I'll come over and take a picture of your house. I'll fly it to your back window. They link. I can be 6 miles away from you and come see you. That was weird. You and Dura was gone at the same time. You and the mayor were gone at the same time.
I couldn't write
What number are we?
Do you need the light or can I shut it off?
No, you can go. I'm just trying to find it. There you go. This one?
Yes.
No, wrong one.
Yeah, that's the wrong one. Okay, so I think that's on. We were talking about dispatches room currently. So I have a proposal to present to you guys. As you well know, dispatch is currently located here in the building with the sheriff's office and the detention center. They will soon be relocated to a new location, which will make that space available. And our interest in this space would be to create a safe and functioning break room where our officers, supervisors, medical staff, and kitchen personnel can take a moment to have a warm meal and a proper break, which will allow them to regroup and be more effective at their duties and daily tasks. In our research, we have found more than a dozen detention centers that offer their staff an adequate break room with functioning appliances and space. So will you switch to the next slide? Several detention centers failed to respond to our survey. In Valencia County, the break room for their staff is 10 by 15 feet. Chavez County, which this is in Chavez County, has a break room that ventures from 15 to 20 feet. And they also have an outside break area as well. That's their outside area. Metropolitan Detention Center in Bernalillo County has 2 break rooms, which include an inside break room 25 feet by 25 feet and an outside break area, much like this one. These facilities offer their staff a break room as well as a locker room. Locker rooms are a space for staff to get ready for their shift, before shift, and also after shift, and their personal items to be secure in a secure locker. At the Roosevelt County Detention Center, we offer our staff we offer our staff a break room and a locker room, all in one, ranging from 9 feet to 15 feet. This break room is used for 22 officers, 5 sergeants, 3 lieutenants, a MAT coordinator, DWI coordinator, magistrate court compliance officer, 4 kitchen workers, and 13 medical contractors. The administrative assistant and the administrator. In this area where there is 2 tables, and you can see one in the back over there holding up the microwave, and the one that one of the sergeants is standing at there. A sink, a fridge, 2 banks of lockers, and a large trash can. This area has the tendency to have high traffic and does not really allow our staff to have a proper break. On any given shift, there should be or could be between 6 and 12 staff members and contractors trying to use the break room. During a day shift, you could add the MAT program manager, the DWI compliance officer, compliance manager, and the magistrate probation compliance officer, the administrative assistant, training compliance lieutenant, and the administrator in that break room on just one shift. Most of the staff disclose that they often feel rushed and have to eat on the go due to their constant traffic from others going through that area. Officer retention is a primary goal for our county. One aspect to help with that officer retention is to maintain high employee morale. As it sits right now, the break room we have is inadequate. The room is too small to have more than one person in there at a time. If officers see that medical or see someone else, such as medical, administrative, MAT, DWI, etc., is in there, they tend to return to the secure part without taking a proper break. They may go outside to their car, which is not really optimal for us either, as it may be too cold outside in the winter or too hot in the summer. Our officers have no area where they are truly away from the rigors of the job. Their break room does not have a door, so as nurses, kitchen staff, deputies, police officers, probation officers, maintenance staff, and supervisors come and go from the secure part of the area or the facility, the officers are not really separated from the noise of the slamming doors. At times, other law enforcement agencies may also have arrestees with them while walking through the halls, and the arrestees can see the officers in the break room. According to the NAMAC Adult Detention Standards under the Physical Plant Standards, Section PP02, staff facilities, for new construction or substantial remodel, staff needs are met through providing adequate spaces and locations that are convenient for use. Staff are provided with the following: an area or room for an employee lounge and that offers privacy from detainees and provides space for meals. As mentioned before, there is no door on the present break room to provide the privacy when detainee workers are working out in the hallways. Maintenance and contract staff often moves through that area, causing a disturbance for officers trying to take a break. Our officers need that area or need an area where they can fully disengage from the detention areas to reset mentally during the day, to maintain good mental health and attitude. And talking with our officers, they agreed that having a better break area and being able to close themselves off from the noise of the rest of the building would be a great help to get them through their days. Downtime during the day is important for employees to decompress and reset so they can finish out their day. It is doubly important for employees working in detention. The environment is more confrontational on a daily basis from most jobs. In law enforcement, the arresting officer has the arrestee for an average of 30 minutes. Once they are booked in and are our detainees, our officers see them on a daily basis for 12 hours or more a day. Having this area for a break room would be beneficial in the following reasons. One, it will show newly hired officers that we care for their well-being on the job. Two, once on the job and knowing that we care for their well-being during the day, those officers will be more inclined to stay employed with the detention center. And three, having the area to decompress will better the officers' mental health and the morale of the officers, and it'll remain higher. All three of these will help with our officer retention for the detention center. And that's all we have. Oh, this is our outside area. Yeah, that is the sewer from the back day rooms. So that is the sewer. Yeah, nobody goes over there. Did you guys have any questions?
Is that room that you're wanting, is there anything that needs to be done to that room to make it?
To be truthful, I've kind of looked at, furniture, maybe a TV, things like that. It may need to be painted and have some holes fixed. I could honestly do it for under 5,000. The carpet is fine in there. And,
You bought paint
no, I'm
lately?
talking about the furniture mostly. But I mean, to get it to where we would want it to be,
$70
it would
a
be pretty low cost. And I mean, the officers are willing to help fix it up. Anything we need to do.
And the other thing too is that it will open up, so on the other side of, one of the things that we talked about is we've got to get Darla out. She's in an interview room right now and making an office. And y'all may remember, like, when we were back for the tour,
Yeah.
it's like that little bitty hole right there. So there is an office on the other side of dispatch that we talked about, we'll relocate Darla's room when we have a chance to actually put her in an office. So that will free up an interview room at that location.
Yes, that little interview room would be open. We don't have really a use for it. That's what it used to be, was an interview room. It has the mirror and everything that they need for that area. I honestly have no need for it.
So you're just saying, Darla needs an office that she can function in. If we move her to the office space on the other side, it's in that hallway, the door is right across from,
My office.
Administrator Ramsey's door. That goes into that office. Dispatch is currently using it, and when they relocate, there'll be an office there where Darla could be, and that would free up an interview room for the sheriff's office.
That they were asking for?
Part of what they need. They need more space, but they need another interview room, is the way I understood it from looking at the.
Well, would it be big enough to hold, like, that office space that she has, is that in a whole, could we fit, what, 30 people?
No, that's
No.
a little office.
No, where Darla's at, they even
Well,
closed,
that's what I was
they
asking.
shut half of it
See,
off
what
anyway.
he's wanting is something that can hold like 30 people.
Yeah.
and then there's-
These want state police
Okay.
investigation
And they
detectives.
need more
Investigators.
investigation room. So like that one interview room that they have right now, they have that very expensive, who's like not that piece of equipment that can't be touched. So I think they would like to have another interview room as well, to where it's not, where that, they have the one with the equipment, but they also have another location. Is the way I understood it from those. So it would meet everybody's needs, that's why it's like.
You just
I
take
encourage
the
them both
I mean,
to present to y'all,
the
let
magistrate court
everybody-
used to be in there
This
too.
for the detention center would be used 24 hours a day. I mean, we're constantly having people come in, come out, and all those things, and people have to take breaks. And
So this is the same one that he was saying he didn't want to, that was okay. I'm with you.
They both came as meetings, and I said, the commission needs to hear, look, I'm being naughty. The commission is the one that will hear both of the requests, just bring those and talk about what's required. I think the sheriff's proposal will require some renovations for the facility. Walls are going to have to move, or doors are going to have to be opened up, and some things along those lines. I don't have a proposal from them, so I don't know what they're exactly looking. So I don't have any dollar figures to attach to that.
No, ma'am. Just paint furniture.
Well, this room wouldn't be big enough to accommodate some 30 investigators.
The dispatcher's room. I mean, it's virtually the same size as their conference room already. So their side of the building is kind of a mirror image of our side of the building, such as their training room. Well, our training room on the mirror side, I'm not really sure what they use it for, but we use ours for training, and we do our briefings in there, things like that. I mean, we constantly have cadets in our training room, and then, well, I mean, you guys have walked past our small break room, and usually it's got a lot of traffic going through there. So
The dispatch room. So Commissioner Savage, if y'all wanted to repurpose the dispatch room to meet the sheriff's needs, there would have to be some significant renovations at that point. I think there's going to have to be some walls removed or moved. About the same size as their current conference center.
How big is
honestly, it possibly could be about this size.
About this room. I don't think it's quite as
Yes.
wide, but maybe a little longer or something. It's about like this.
It's honestly almost this size. Maybe even a bit smaller. Good? All right. Thank you, guys.
I lost my list.
So if y'all are in your commission, up at the front in the commission expense, it'll be the 401 commissioner. The EPCOG letter is one of the, I think it's the first one that's in your section.
Working on budget. Oh, joy. I'm Sandy Chancey. I'm the executive director of Eastern Plains Council of Governments. We are a regional planning and development organization. We district court of state and local. We cover 7 counties. We're sure.
Now it's on. Okay. So under your membership agreement, of course, item A is implement the work plan as established by the EPCOG Board of Directors for the current fiscal year. Our work plan is rather extensive. We submit one every year to the Department of Finance Administration, and it's about 9 pages long. Basically, they task us with assisting you with almost everything, except your financial management. We assist with grant writing, research for funding sources. We can do grant administration under a separate contract. We've been fiscal agent for several of our smaller communities that have difficulty doing that. We do transportation planning. We are we co-manage 2 regional transportation planning organizations for the DOT. One from District 2, which is the Southeast RTPO that you guys are involved in. And we also co-manage the Northeast RTPO, which is District 4 for DOT. Economic development, we are a federally designated economic development district. All 7 COGs in New Mexico are. So we can help with planning. People don't realize that you need to do a lot of planning in order to do economic development. You have to be ready. You have to have a ready and available workforce. You have to have comprehensive plans, preliminary engineering reports. There's a lot that goes into being prepared to do economic development. So, and one of the main things that we do is we're problem solvers. A lot of times our communities will get into a bind with certain state or federal agencies, namely the Environment Department. And we have been very successful in setting up meetings and mediating those issues to help our communities avoid fines, avoid having their grant funds taken away, things like that. So, do you have any questions on the services that EPCOG provides, or? Basically, we're here to help you. That is our sole purpose, is to help our members.
I should maybe answer the question, but I'm gonna ask it. I'm gonna ask this question, even though I should have already known the answer to this question. Cover 7 counties, right?
Yes,
7 counties. And how many counties out of those 7 municipalities and counties participate with you guys?
currently all 6. 6, and Roosevelt County is the only one that is not participating.
City of Portales is still with you guys, right?
Yes.
Okay. And that's the only questions that I have. I noticed the rate is still, well, 3582 would be the annual.
Yeah, we have not raised membership dues since 2014, and we're making every effort not to have to do that. We are currently working on a fee schedule for some other services that we're planning to offer. I've got a couple of staff people that are getting certified in planning from the American Planning Association, so that we can help you with your comprehensive plans, your economic development plans, things of that nature. We think we can do those a little bit cheaper than some of the planning firms that are out there now. And we also, we have a fee structure for the grant administration and the fiscal agent. Grant administration is 3% of the grant amount. Fiscal agent is 1% of the grant amount unless we're administering the grant. If we're administering the grant, we don't charge for fiscal agent services.
Just for Commissioner Savage, just, it's for historical purposes. I've asked Ms. Chansey, since she's been the CEO there at EPCOG, to present here to us every year. I just see the impact, positive impact that it has statewide, entities like these. Although I hate to mention this, a lot of times there's a lot of people that are in the decision-making capacity that they politicize a lot of things sometimes. And in my opinion, at 3582, we'd be getting our bang for our buck. Uh, we've been voted down on this proposition for the last couple of years, but I'm thinking that now where we're sitting, I think that it'd be very advantageous to at least see where we're at least on a year-to-year basis, see how we could utilize EPCOG. I don't think that financially we're at a point where we cannot afford this additional service to our county. I think it would be strictly an enhancement. And at 3582, that's not asking much, just to see exactly how we could utilize it. We've got 6 counties, 6 counties and 1 municipality out of 7, so 13 out of 14 that partake in this. So there's got to be some good in it, without a doubt. And so I strongly support EBCOG. I have for many, many years. So with that, I want to just thank Sandy for being here again and sharing. And I know that you've got an open door policy that if Commissioner Savage wanted any additional information, you guys would have that open door
I'm
too.
more than happy to meet with any of you at any time. So,
I would like to say that I agree with Commissioner Lopez on everything he said. I thank you for coming. I also know that within Roosevelt County, you also have ELIDA,
yes.
which is also a member. So Portales and ELIDA both
Yeah, as are Floyd, Causey, and Dora.
Okay, so everyone but Roosevelt County, everyone within, all the
Yes.
municipalities within Roosevelt County are in the COG.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we have 6 county members and 22 municipality members. The only yeah, roughly. Our dues structure is based on population. I can email you the formula that we used in 2014. We kind of had to go back and reconstruct because we had nothing to go on when we needed to raise dues. So basically, we used a tiered system by population. So our smallest communities actually pay very little. I believe the lowest amount for one of our very smallest communities is $150 a year. And then it goes up from there, with our largest communities being the biggest contributors. And that goes to pay matching funds for these other services, other grants that we get to provide these services. Our state grant and aid that is allocated to us by the legislature every year is a dollar for dollar match. Our EDA planning grant is a 30% match rate, and our DOT grant is a 20% match. So we have to get creative sometimes, but that's why we're looking into seeing what additional services we can offer at a fee-for-service rate.
I also have to mention that when I was on the, oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Savage.
We don't have anybody on, we haven't been members for how many years? What year did we get out of the EPCOG? We haven't been, yeah, we haven't been members since 20.
Since I've been on, I know for a fact we have not been members, and I've presented it every year since I've been on.
And I'll be happy to come back, as long as I'm in town. I do have, 7 counties and 22 municipalities that I have to pay attention to. So as long as I'm in town, if not, I can send our Deputy Director, Vincent Soul, or another staff member to represent us at that meeting.
One more thing I've got to mention. I know it's been a while back, but when I was on the Association of Counties Board of Directors, there was presentations from several entities, even out-of-staters, EPCOG representatives or representatives from all over the state of New Mexico, and they got a lot of bipartisan support. I think at the tune of 100%, pushing for EPCOGs to partake all over the state of New Mexico. And I think we're like at a major minority, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not up to date, obviously, because I'm off the board now, and I really haven't post the pandemic. I haven't really looked at the numbers, but it says a lot that out of 7 counties they represent, there are 6 counties that partake, all municipalities, including a lot of our villages and townships within our county. And like I said, for $3,500, I think we should at least chance to see if we can get our bang for our buck. And we'll know within the year how instrumental they can be to benefit us in certain things. And I'm not taking anything away from our administrative staff that we have, because I would compare them to, if not the best, the best. But there's never anything wrong with utilizing additional resources if we have the opportunity to. I mean, all it's going to be is, in my opinion, a plus, and a plus.
One thing we're going to be including in our annual report at our annual meeting next month, which will be held in Logan on June the 8th at 10 a.m. if you're interested in coming, is going to be a return on investment. And we're calculating that by the monies we've helped our members bring in, compared to the annual dues that they pay. When we ran those calculations, there is not a single member that is less than 100% return on investment. So we'll be providing that information in our annual report. We'll be emailing it out, of course, in the board packet when we get to that point for our annual meeting. So we're here. We're ready and willing to help you with anything that you need us to help you with. And I thank you for your invitation.
Thanks, Sandy.
Sandy.
Thanks, Sandy.
Please call if you have any questions.
Mr. Lopez, I'm thinking it may be more to it than just about us. Our support of the organization, more than just our personal benefit, but its organization. Looks like it benefits a lot of other people. If we support it, if we can get our investment back, we don't have to necessarily make a lot of money, but if we contribute to the welfare of others, I think it might be worth looking into.
I think I won't speak for Ms. Chansey, but I think that's all I'm thinking that's all she's asking is for us just to consider it and just kind of get the insight and make an informed decision, because we all do have our own take on it. I mean, I'm very proud. My dad was the Aoc representative governor appointed for many years under both administrations, Republican and Democrat. So, I'm a little more partial to Aoc. It holds a special place in my heart. So with that, I mean, I'm a big supporter regardless.
Thank you.
And I've also gotten insight from pretty much all other 32 counties when I was on the board, the Association of Counties. So I'm going to support it. I think it's a good thing. And it's like they say, you can't win the lotto if you don't buy a ticket. We'll never know how we benefit from Aoc if we don't give them a try. And if it's been since 2015, I mean, that says it all.
Is that how you win the lottery? You have to buy a ticket?
Sandy, I have a question for you.
Good. Yes, sir.
Before 7 years ago, Aoc represented Roosevelt County for how long? He was here?
As long as I can remember. I've been the executive director since December of 2010. Prior to that, well, I joined the COG in May of 2009, and the county was a member then. I would just have to look back through our old records
In
and
those
see.
past years, how many things did Aoc help Roosevelt County with?
I would have to do a lot of research.
That would sell me to.
I know that I personally helped with the CDBG grant to build the senior center at La Casa. Just the grant part of it. I wasn't involved in any of the construction part of it. So, we've helped with transportation funding applications.
For the county?
For the county, yes.
Can I enlighten you guys a little bit? When I became a county commissioner in 2000, I immediately after Robert Garcia was appointed by, I think, Governor Johnson. Soon after he was out of office, the next governor appointed my dad. I took I took an interest to what CDBG was all about. Dad was also part of the Housing Authority. So Roosevelt County had never utilized CDBG. And what they were saying in Santa Fe was it was monies that were there, federal monies, that were just getting funneled to other places, even outside of our state, because it was so underutilized. So I was instrumental. And I'm going to give myself credit because I was instrumental into talking to my fellow commissioners back in 2001, 2002, into looking into CDBG. And that's when we had Charlene as our county manager. No, it wasn't even Charlene. But anyway, maybe Kendall Terry. But we applied. We did an application, and yes, it was hard. The public hearing. We went through the whole process, and we were awarded. And then it just became where it was something that was kind of put in the back burner again, because it is a lot of work. Amber can attest to that. Amber knows the work that it takes. They have expended a lot of time and energy in this. So Roosevelt County, although there were members for all those years, they really never utilized CDBG. or never really pursued it because I don't know if it was the management part of it. I don't want to question what it was. It is a lot of work, bottom line. So maybe that was a deterrent. I know that the city, we got a lot of our projects done within my district, curb, gutter, lighting, drainage. From the nineties all the way to the early 2000s. I mean, we really, really overutilized it. And I can't believe cities not doing it continuously because it was so successful, very successful. So with that, that's just one of the things that they may be able to help with, but there's just so many other vast array of services that they could help with. It's better, in my opinion, to have them and not need them than to need them and not have them, especially when we're doing work Santa Fe, you have questions, just anything. And I'm not taking anything away from our administration because, like I said, I'll rank them up against anybody else's in the other 32 counties. But we don't know how good of a service they provide in 2022 if we don't have them on board for $3,500.
Sandy, I've got a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
So you mentioned earlier about your entity being a fiscal agent for some.
Yes.
The reason it comes to my mind is because we were asked in a recent meeting if we could be a fiscal agent for the Eastern Food Bank. I know you're talking about growing your entity. Is that something that could be an option for them? I know we're kind of in a time-sensitive situation. But
Yes, and I have discussed it with Diana, and Diana and I will be meeting again tomorrow. I'm not exactly sure, we do have to charge for that service. That may have been an issue with her. I don't know. But she and I will be meeting on it again tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
And I just want to mention, since Liliana mentioned that you were mentioned at Monday's meeting where there was there was several agencies that were represented there, and EPCOG was thrown out a lot as an option for physical agents. So you probably better prepare for a lot more calls, especially if they pursue those RFPs for those monies that are going to be allocated for our area for those types of services.
Yeah, and
food
it's a
services.
service that we can provide.
Yeah.
Um,
And yeah, I knew, is it 1% or what's the percentage?
For fiscal agent, we're charging 1% of the grant amount.
Okay, so they were right then.
Yeah.
Whoever.
If
divulged
they
that
want me to
information.
administer the grant, then it's 3%. And I don't charge for fiscal agent services.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Here we
Good to
get
meet you.
Good to meet you.
next on the block.
Thank you.
So you're in your budget right now talking about these memberships. The other thing that's on your list is the Roosevelt County Community Development Corporation. Commissioner Dixon sits on that board, so I'm sure she would be the most well-versed to speak to that allocation. Y'all can look at your history, and therefore the season 2015, like fiscal year 16, fiscal year 17, 18, those were the ones that there weren't. And even through 19, there was no direct contribution. We were still providing the building, the housing, and a lot of in-kind services for that organization. Y'all started doing the contributions again. And in fiscal year 20 and 21, y'all had allocated the $5,000. Last year was the first year y'all had stepped up to the full $15,000. And of course, that was the request that was presented initially, but there is transition of leadership over there, and we don't really have a new director in place yet to be able to make that presentation for these workshops. So,
Can I say something real quick, Commissioner Dixon? I don't mean to. I do know you represent the board. I've had 4 missed calls from Eric Segovia, and I just, for some reason, have a feeling it's in reference to this. He's the chairman, right? Would you want me to just return his call real quick since you do sit on the board of commissioners and kind of, if he wants, do you guys mind? And you can go ahead and do whatever you want, but I'll step out and call him.
I do sit on that board. I would like to thank you all for appointing me to that board. That is like my favorite one. I do. I love that board. And I know I get really excited about that one.
no, that's good.
But I'm really working with them because I would like them to remember rule Roosevelt County.
Well, that'd be great.
And so that's what I'm trying to drive home. So they get tickled at me because every time they say Roosevelt County, I always chime in with rural in front of it. So now they've all got to where they say that before they say Roosevelt County. But I do love that board. I think it's very instrumental for our community. We do a lot. We do have a new executive director. She's coming in the 16th, I want to say, somewhere around the 16th. It's Jody Diaz. We did all the interviews and everything. She was amazing. Poor thing was sicker than a dog. She called that morning, but she was so excited about the job that she did it via Zoom, sick. But she did a great job. And anyway, so she's a go-getter. I think it's going to be great. We've got the Bells coming in. Or where Bells was, we've got Burke's Outlet coming in. You know, there's the 2 apartments coming in. We've got the Fun Center. There's several other things that's in the works. And I just think it's an awesome board, and I think it's awesome for our community. And I really hope that we continue that. And I hope y'all leave me on there. Don't nobody take it away from me.
Is that all of that one? What are you doing? Are we done?
No, but as of right now, you can see we have the
Information in this.
no, we didn't. We don't even have a formal request. We didn't get a letter. There was a lot of transition happening at the time all of these came about. So what would have normally happened, there just isn't leadership in there to handle that. So that's why I was like, well, I attend as ex officio. I'm not a voting member. Commissioner Dixon is. If y'all do not contribute the 15,000, Commissioner Dixon doesn't get to serve as a board member. Because we don't have a seat at that point. That's the magic point of having a seat on the board with that.
Now, which one of those items are we talking about?
It's-
45, line 45?
51 right here. It's this line right here. So it's 15,000 right here. We do have a LEDA ordinance from 1999 that allows for that contribution. And that is initially in your rough budget, but just wanted you aware of that and the request, of course, to continue in that. The county is unique in terms of we do not collect a LEDA tax. We do not this is money that comes out of your general fund. The university, I believe theirs is a general fund allocation as well. I think the city's able to use some of their LEDA funds perhaps for some of their board. I'm not sure. That could be a question we could ask. I think theirs comes out of the LEDA funds and they contribute 60,000, I want to say, annually from that. So the goal of this board is that they work on behalf of Roosevelt County, all of Roosevelt County, including the city of Portales, on all of the economic development. It's a public-private partnership. They are a nonprofit. Randy Knudsen served as the board chair for probably 20 plus years. I mean, he has an infinite amount of knowledge on that and background. But they recruit, they retain existing businesses. They try to bring in the new stuff. Their goal is to drive that.
But we were 19, 25, 5, 15. What does 5,000 get you?
Well, we didn't have no money.
No, but
Oh,
if we're paying 15,000 for full voting rights, what'd you do? Just get to vote a third of the time?
I didn't even get to go.
No, again, it was just the contribution of, hey, this is important. The commission is acknowledging that, but we don't have the funding for the full board seat at this point. So it was still supporting because it's not just
I
about
see.
having
I
the
understand.
board vote.
I
It's
understand.
getting the services and getting that economic development.
Eric Segovia just said that he would respectfully request that we support them in any way that we can, and thanks in advance. And Eric is the deputy guy at Electric Co-op. He's the engineer out there. Him and my son were actually engineer roommates at New Mexico State. So he's a good kid. He's a good guy, but he did say anything that we could do, everything transition at director's news. So they've got a lot of stuff going on. I'm going to tell you hello. But anyway, just for the record.
Well, that'll be another action item someday.
It's not typically something that's on the agenda. It's not treated the same. It's typically what y'all want to include in the budget.
Okay.
Because if we took everything as an action item, y'all would be in a
And
4-day
so when
meeting.
are we going to approve the budget?
May
Okay,
31st.
so if we approve the budget in May, that's in there.
As long as
We're
you
in.
bless it.
We can put it on the next agenda, right? Do we need to put it on the next thing? Oh, no.
It's typically included in the budget. It's just the membership. The other unique thing about EPCOG is that they require that y'all appoint somebody to the board. You've already been appointed to the economic development. Y'all take care of that in the first meeting in January. EPCOG would be a new appointment, and they request a resolution, and they have several steps with theirs, whereas the rest of these are just annual memberships. How about you, buddy?
Is that all of the commissioners?
Oh, no, but the clerk needs to go.
Can I stay right here?
Yeah.
Get your.
My button don't work.
Yeah, our budget is kind of flat, so it's not a big increase. That first line up there is the biggest increase, and that's for computer software. We did our upgrade for self-service earlier this year, and then the expected increase in software cost anyway is kind of included in that. We requested a little bit extra in mileage and per diem and travel and education because we know that we're going to be able to travel again a little more. And because Lisa is the newest person in our office, she doesn't have the same level of training that the rest of us do. So she's kind of just getting caught up to speed. So that's the increase in the education. Yeah. Well, we asked for dual monitors for everybody in our office because then when we're looking at one thing and seeing another and you can compare side to side, it makes working with very detailed records just that much easier. And then the other thing is Silka's computer is about 6 years old. So we're looking at upgrading at least one computer. And they actually also wanted chairs, new chairs. So if you come in one of these days and your chair is missing and you've got one that sits close to the floor, somebody from my office probably stole it.
What? What are you talking?
It's a possibility. Is that one electrician? No, we didn't, but they do want some.
This is the election.
Mm-hmm. It didn't really go up. So that highlighted line item there for 15,000 is the expected cost of elections, and we thought it was going to go up, but then the legislature didn't approve it. So it'll be again next year when they ask for another increase, because right now our maximum is $200 per day for an official. We asked that it was going to go up to 200, but then the legislature didn't approve it. So we're still going to be at 150 to 75, 175 per day. Through January.
They'll just cover 175.
Yep.
So if we wanted to give them 200, an extra 25, price of gas.
State statute says the maximum is $175 per day for an election poll worker. We could give them a stipend to drive there. But from your house to the Dora Senior Center, we're not sending anybody from Portales out to work at Elida. So that's not really a feasible thing to do. And then that's just the breakdown of who all works at every location and how many poll workers we have and how many sites we have, and that's what it equals.
I have a curiosity question.
Sure.
Just came up. The city never took advantage of having the county run their elections to save them all kinds of money. They never did, because it was an
No.
option. It was legislation, but it was an option for each municipality, and it would have saved them like in the tens of thousands, right? And they never took that option.
No.
Wow, no wonder
Every-
our streets are. Well, I better shut up.
Every municipality in the state, with the exception of 26 municipalities, have opted into the regular local election. 2 of those municipalities are in Roosevelt County that want to maintain their own elections. And that's the city of Portales and the city of Elida, or the village of Elida, town of Elida.
You gotta work on that.
You might remember that, Miss Hamilton, when we go to negotiating.
Yes, sir. And we did share, because I asked for an estimate of annually how much that could save for participation in the local election act. And the figures that Mandy gave me initially were somewhere between 8,000 and 12,000 annually that could be saved if they participated in the local election act and had the services and the utilization of the clerk's office.
Have they ever?
It doesn't affect our budget because they have to cover the cost of their own election. But if they join in with ours and it's all in the odd year election in the regular local instead of having a separate municipal, it doesn't increase the cost of our election because the regular local election is covered by the Secretary of State's office. We front the money and they pay us back. So for us, it's a wash. For them to stay out there on their own, they have to cover the whole cost.
Have they
Now-
ever indicated why?
They want to maintain their own, autonomy.
You know, it's frustrating, Commissioner Savage, because when we looked at that legislation, we followed it pretty closely. I was still on the board with the association, and it was to benefit. It was supposed to. Its intent was for it to be a win-win situation for county and municipalities. That way, they could kind of jump on the bandwagon, and they chose not to. And you know, any little bit helps. If it's up to 14,000 per year, that it's going to help the municipality, and you could earmark that money elsewhere. And then it was very confusing to me as to what was there. I don't know what the council I'm not going to question. I hate speculating. It is what it is. They didn't take advantage of something that could have been very advantageous to them.
Have they
Uh,
ever told you-
monetarily.
Have they ever told you why not?
That's their answer is they just want to maintain their own autonomy
They could opt in.
at any time. Yes.
And what about the village or town of Elida? I mean, it's one thing to have the city that has multi-million-dollar
Right.
budgets, but I mean,
That's what I was
the
wondering.
town of
Would they-
Elida
the
is
town
so
of
small.
Elida what did they? That's what I was wondering about what they said.
Kim said it was up to the board, and the
Oh.
board didn't say anything. But
How
board-
they
much
have
would it save
30.
them?
They have 33 voters on their voter roll, or they had 33 voters cast a ballot out of a less than 1,000 in
Right.
their voter roll, and that election cost them a little bit over $8,000. So cost per ballot was well over $200 per ballot cast.
And the council voted. I oughta go to
No,
their
the council did not
meetings.
vote.
The
They haven't voted to opt in. They've just said we're not going to have it on our agenda. We're not doing it.
Is that something y'all could work together on? Because I'm not sure they all understand what that means. Like maybe it's an education thing, and as they're a commissioner and as the county clerk. I know Stephanie had spent some time down there too, and just trying to educate because there was a lack of education, kind of like what Commissioner Lopez said. You just know how much they're struggling with needing funds and stuff. I'm just curious if they realize what could really, like, what they could take advantage of and what it really means.
I don't know if they have put a dollar amount to that level of autonomy that they want to hold on to, but it's well over $200 per ballot cast in that last municipal officer election. 33 people.
And I did speak
Well, it
to
was
individuals
an
without
uncontested
mentioning names
race.
when all this legislation was up and when it passed, and they were against it from the get-go. There
Mhm.
was no ends, ifs, or buts about it. They didn't want anybody to be intrusive. And like I said, I won't mention names, and I'm not referring to no councilman nor the mayor, no elected officials. I'm talking about individuals that were staffers that were just very territorial. They said we don't want anything to be. So I don't think that they put a dollar amount and looked at the whole picture, like where can we cut, where can we gain, where can we do this. But anyway, it is what it is, like I said, and no reason for me to continue speculating. It may just get back to them.
So if they opt in and they do it here, or, opt in with the county, will they still have the machines in Elida or in?
On election day only at that point. They wouldn't
Okay.
have all of the early voting. They had the 28 days
Have
of
we
early
ever
voting.
had an early
No.
voter?
You have not had an early voter in Elida, but you had the option for 28 days, but nobody took advantage of it. Let me just clarify that was an uncontested race. There were no contested races on that ballot. So there wasn't a lot of incentive to go and vote either.
On election day,
They'd have a
'cause
voting
whoever's listening,
location
y'all listen to
out
me.
there.
On election day, the machines will be there for like
Mhm.
the elderly people that just do not want to come here. They're
Mhm.
still, the machines are still going to be right there.
In the same location they are for, like, they had it in City Hall because it was their election and they did it. If it were in the regular local, like we had our regular local and had Dora, Floyd, Elida in the odd numbered years. And there was a polling location out there, but there wasn't any Elida thing on the ballot, only Elida School Board on the November of 21 election. So they voted on their school board as part of the regular local, and then they voted on their municipal standalone in that expensive election.
I don't think that the municipal elections have ever, I mean, maybe way back when they were contested, but they're not usually even contested. So that seems to me like an awful lot of money for nothing.
Yeah. And Dora and Kazi thought the same thing the first time, and then when they did theirs in 2019 was the first regular local, and they didn't have to do it, and it didn't cost them anything. They were like, "Why haven't we been doing this for years?"
I would just do it just for the headache.
Yeah.
I'm glad I posed the question. I'm glad I, went back years back, and maybe it'll get out and try to lift their finance people. Hey, people that run the budget. Hey, look, cost savings. You may not be a lot, but over the years it's going to be significant. The municipality, the city of Portage. Somebody needs to know. Even the council people, they need to know. I don't know that they were educated enough back then on what legislation it has. What did you title it, Amber? Because I have forgotten this title.
I believe it was the Local Election Act.
Regular
Yes,
local
yes.
election act.
That's exactly what it's called. So I don't think that I don't think that a lot of individuals that were decision makers were informed and or educated about that act that passed, because it just went to the wayside. Everything was like hush hush. And I think that if they get wind of it, they'll know that, hey, this could be a good thing. If they can still opt in. You guys said they can still opt in, right?
That
At
was
any
my
time.
understanding. And there's really, again, it's not like it poses a financial benefit or anything for the county. It's just trying to streamline and improve just the election process with what the county clerk's office already provides. So you just look at a small little town like the town of Elida, and anything that we can do to help them. $8,000 has to be significant in their budget when they look at that. So I think it's a great opportunity to at least try again and educate and talk to the council and see if they really understand what we could do and how we could help them and everything. So
14,000 at least a year for city of Portales.
Well,
Do
it's
the
going to
math.
continue to go up too, especially if that minimum wage or maximum wage for poll workers goes up past 200, then it'll go up. But right now it's still capped. If it goes up again, then and postage goes up every 6 months, it seems like that cost of election is just going to keep increasing. But I think everybody was kind of against it right when it started because they didn't want Santa Fe taking control of their elections, is the mindset.
Who you trying to call, Rod? All right.
So clerk user fees.
And what do we got in clerk user fees? It's same. We have some money set aside there for our professional services. We just have one contract in that, and that's for legal advice on IPRAs and that kind of thing. And then we have the record books, which we're rolling 50,000 forward. We weren't able to get any record books repaired in the last 2 years because they couldn't come in, and we're kind of against sending off our record books to get them repaired somewhere else. We want them done here because that's the only copy we have. That's the original one it did here.
You're being territorial. No,
Yeah.
I'm just joking.
Definitely. Yes, protective's a better word.
Is there anything else?
Mm-mm.
No.
I'm going to turn your page now to Fund 430. Right after clerks, actually. Clerk user fee. We'll be on DWI and our court compliance fund. Okay, so in this fund, we do have two sources of income, which is our grant distribution, a lot of what Darla Reed currently does, and then which is about 85% of that fund. The other source revenue is from our misdemeanor and probation compliance office, who collects probation fees and DWI fees, which you'll see that approximate revenue, $20,000 for probation fees and DWI compliance fees, $28,000. Dean.
So the new AOC grant, where we're going to be the pilot project, y'all will see the two expenditures in here. And that's something that y'all had approved. I believe it was in April when we got the contract, but it's the pilot project where we're trying to provide some new, fresh mental health and behavioral health training to our law enforcement, our first responders and such. So we have the grant coming in at $52,495. And what we do have currently budgeted is $20,995 in law enforcement overtime to run that, like they do the DWI grants and those kind of traffic grants and such. And then $31,500 is set aside for the specialized training and the professional services of that. So that takes care of it.
Thank you. Okay, so a lot of these expenditures that are in these grant fund and distribution are specifically allocated. And Darla does a really good job of submitting our application. In fact, this year we were granted the 99,000, which is what we asked for our upcoming fiscal year. So kudos to Darla for all her hard work in putting that together. So all of those is what you see on there, like printing and publishing. You'll see distribution and grant, and we do have to separate those out. So whenever we report, we can put exactly what distribution expenses we have for each, and then the same thing for our grant. A lot of it's allocated to our printing and publishing, advertising, for DWI prevention. Let's see. What else? Okay, and then social media and the prevention advertising, and then quite a bit of it also is allocated to our professional services who assist with that. Okay, yes, a program evaluator for 20,000, possibly a teen court case manager to assist with some of this teen court. And then at the very bottom, we have small equipment. This year we have was approved for 24,000, which 8,000 will go to the sheriff's office, 8,000 for the Portales Police Department, and then the other 8,000 for the ENMU Police Department.
And there is a copy of the letter. I put the grant award letter, I believe. I think I put that in. Y'all should have that in your tab with their budget.
Okay.
So y'all will recall that this is something that we have taken back on. The city had wanted to get out of this realm. They had done this for many, many years and had these programs. I had worked with the prior city manager, Sammy Standifer, and we had transitioned the misdemeanor compliance, and we had been doing that part. And then the DWI compliance, we added it and took that from the city. And then the city came, I believe it was last year, and said, hey, we want you to take the whole grant. Like at this point, just take it. That was something very important to their financial team over there. I think that was the one that wanted it to go. And Darla has been an absolute joy to work with, just so professional, and she knows what she's doing. We posted the position. She, of course, applied, had great experience for it. So we were thrilled to welcome her over to the county. And you see the dollar volume, the dollars that are coming in. And we love seeing those dollars stay here locally, and the work that she's doing with the DWI prevention. And again, it's another small help to our local law enforcement, because this year, I think it was just over 6,000 or around 6,000 that she was able to get for those law enforcement agencies. And that's where, like Sheriff Parker shared, they got the goggles, and there's like ones for different levels of alcohol and drug impairment, narcotics and different things. And then the pedal carts. So it's all those wonderful things that are coming in the community to really help with that prevention aspect. And then, of course, the compliance officer is someone that y'all will recall we brought on staff in fiscal year 21. Before that, it was all contracted. So that's the difference that you see in the professional services. Down here is when we actually were contracting it out, and that's why you didn't have the rest of this budget. And all these numbers over here, Lily will have to go in and work her magic. This was just the wish list Darla needed for her grant accounting. For her, it's so much easier to have it specified if it's distribution or grant, because again, like Ms. Rivera explained, it is very specific how it's allocated. So this will help her with tracking and just the accounting side. So please do not worry that these are double numbers. These will be modified if this is what the commission approves. We recommend obviously being able to do this for Darla's ease of reporting. We have no problem creating a dozen new account numbers.
So what is this program costing? The county? Huh? It's through a grant, right?
The grant and the fees that are collected. It's the combination of the two.
So
So
it's costing
no
us.
no general fund.
Her lady is costing,
Time.
Mhm.
that was her time.
It is time consuming. It's all, you can see the dollar amount there, that the expenditures that we, all the checks that we process, invoices, procurement policies that we have to also follow, and the guidelines that her grant and distribution that we have to follow as well.
Does that cost up there?
Our time's not
cost.
up there. Hers is, Darla's is, of course, is included in the payroll, but
Oh, I see. Okay.
Do y'all have any other questions on the DWI, the compliance, anything? So if we need like a quick break, I just need to go get Lael so that she can come and do her presentation.
Never miss an opportunity.
We need a Coke machine or something in this building. We need like, y'all took nothing. You what?
You're not gonna miss it. You got a couple left, let's go get you. You're not good with bread
The bread basket, that thing ain't been there in years. I used to love to go to the bread basket.
That's the first thing I thought of. Why don't you do
But you
that?
remember, it used to be done when I was there. I used to I enjoyed it, Rod.
Well, y'all already know all this stuff. It's all, I'm sure we did this last year. Where was I? Yeah, but I don't remember being this.
You gotta remember, you were just newly on last year. We were in the Jake Lopez building.
Yeah, I remember being there, but
We
I
couldn't hear.
can't remember.
We couldn't hear them. I saw the that came in like 1924.
I'm gonna have me a donut.
Go right ahead. I already had one. Matter of fact, I ate one this morning, and then I ate one for dessert after lunch. It looks to me like it'd be a problem.
Y'all can't hear me in in my natural voice? Okay, well then I need to we need to readjust here. Well, I'm not real sure how you want me to begin. I'm very straightforward with this. I think I would ask maybe first if y'all had questions of me and of the line items that I'm proposing for. Yeah, I'm so low maintenance. It's not even funny. Oh, completely less. I'm okay, sure. We can talk about that. This year we tried using a current employee, Miss DeShay, in our office. That worked out fabulously. As you know, it's pretty seasonal in my office where we are hit pretty hard different months out of the year for different reasons. And that's very hard to get a full time or part time or to justify a full time employee for all year long. With budget constraints, we've since gone down to just 2 people in my office. Sometimes we struggle with that. So we came up with kind of an idea we could have a shared employee. And we did that with Miss DeShay this year. It's worked out really good. And we want to look for the opportunity to continue that next year as well, if possible. And I believe, yeah, she is. It's up there, y'all. I think you guys have already kind of gone through this. We estimated around 200 hours is about what I use her for. That's to fill in during those heavy tax collecting times, fill in on days where maybe one of us needs to be out of the office, or if we have vacation, either way, sick or vacation. That's pretty much what we've come up with that. And
Didn't we have isn't the girl upstairs the girl that works at the front desk? Cannot remember her name now.
Lauren.
Wasn't she like the floater girl? Wasn't that what the deal was when we got her up there, that she was going to be the floater that?
So we tried that about 2 people ago. And yes.
And
yes,
what?
I'm like, we did. We tried that a couple of people ago. The issue that we ran into was the cross training and the turnover with the administrative assistant position. So at this point, with the repurpose, the position is half IPRA, which takes, they help all of us. They work with the treasurer's office, the assessor, the clerk, myself with the IPRA type stuff, and then half the administrative, renting the buildings or whatever. But at this point, that position hadn't been floating, but that position's also just kind of been recently filled again in the last month. So about 2 fiscal years ago, we did try the floater.
I just thought we could
Or 3. Yeah, when so there wasn't that position in administration for several years. And then we did try it. We were not real fruitful with the floating and the cross training and all of that, but we did try it. The sharing of the employee has been very fruitful, I feel like. I mean, our assessor and our treasurer's office work so well together, and we apportion 10% of the cost of the employee and take it to the treasurer's office. And then we have to journal entry and track, her hours and things when they do seasonal help and everything. And when we talked to the treasurer and the assessor about it this year, I wondered if the 10% was like the 200 hours was enough, and that was what Lael thought was adequate at that point. But it's also been really good because we had wanted a little bit more, that wanted a little more challenge, something a little bit different, and so they've been able to meet those needs, and we want to keep those employees. So I love the fact that we've got very creative people.
Double pay.
She probably wishes.
That's what I would want.
Right. No, I tell you, it's been a great asset having her because she has that assessor based knowledge and she brings that to my office so often. So many of our issues cross and some of the problems are shared. And we have a customer who comes in and they may have an assessor question, and I would normally have to send them over across the hall. And when she's there, and she takes care of it and explains things. And so it's really been a big benefit for us versus scheduling with the floater position in admin. I can literally run across the hall and say, George, I have an emergency. Can I borrow Jerry? Could she come over? She can clock out. She walks over, clocks in with us. It is seamless and I love it. So I would just very much appreciate keeping her in that position for us, if at all possible.
She knows the software too. That's another huge thing that we
Yes.
ran into with cross training. And this part of this was even before Mandy stepped into her role, is trying to figure out how to have enough time to train whoever in the software when they have a working knowledge of it. That's been incredible too. Jerry just knows the software front and back. And so we have it budgeted. We hadn't had any issues. It hadn't created any administrative. I mean, it just gives us something else to do upstairs, but it hasn't created a hardship per se. And it's been great use. I just feel like it's been really creative because it's
Agreed.
a lot of times it's during the slower times in the assessor that you see the treasurer's office when they are so busy. So it works like they're not short staffed at that period because they're able to share.
And see, wait back and watch and see how well it worked before we ask if at some point we can use assessor or treasurer to help with elections. It's working great. So we're hoping maybe someday it'll work for us too. Just putting that out there.
I'm just going to tell you right now, we're kind of slim in our office, so I'm not real sure who you could borrow from me. You want to borrow my chair? Oh, I don't know. I get a little possessive. Okay. It is, yes. I try really hard. I'm pretty frugal. So anybody have no questions of me? And no?
Is there anything else that I'm not thinking of that you wanted to touch on?
Well, I didn't know. Were we talking about the rate change at all? Is that not or is that just?
We haven't talked
Okay.
about anything. We haven't done any kind of revenues.
Oh, okay. So y'all will call me back probably for that.
No, let's jump right in.
Okay.
We're on revenue now.
Yes. And y'all do not, I don't think y'all have that. I have reports and everything, but I don't think I have the sheet. Yeah, I should have gone to lunch. I know. Can you see those? I
Put
can
more zeros up there.
I can make it a little bit, maybe a little bit bigger. Does that help?
Oh, I forgot to take that off.
Okay, so I think as we work through where we're at, we worked at, and we can pull up different things, but in your revenues tab, the 401 revenues, I think it should be about your third tab. You're going to have all kinds of information on property taxes, GRT. Let me just pull up this beautiful little slide we have for you. So this is your property tax history. The blue column represents what's budgeted, and the red is what's collected. So you can see there was some growth in the budget versus collected in 2021. And we anticipate there will be some additional growth in 2022. And the assessor shared this a little bit in his annual report whenever George referenced the property valuation growth that we've seen as a result of the Sagamore Wind Farm. That's been more specific of what it's been really tied to in everything. So you can see the steady growth. You can see the pretty clear line, in the property tax growth. One thing to keep in mind is that here, I believe, when did we raise? I think it was in 2015. So it would have been right in here in 2015-16. The commission voted to take the property tax rate to the max, which is the 11.85%. And that was, of course, when the county was dealing with the financial struggles and everything that they were going through at that point, just trying to stay solvent and avoid the wall of bankruptcy we were facing there for a period of time. So that was enacted here, and you've seen the steady increase over those years, which has been with the market. You'll hear Steven and George talk about the 3% that they're able to put on to catch all the older properties up. And the thought is that the 3% is the cap that the state allows to assess new values every year, but the 3% will never really catch up with market rates. They did say, though, that they've basically caught up with the new construction because of the pricing of new construction, as crazy as it is now. So they see a lot of those assessments, but one of the options that the commission has each year is where to set that operating rate of property tax. And the goal of the commission at the point when this was enacted in 2015-16 was we take it up, we deal with what we need to, but it's never the goal of leaving it at the max amount, because then you have nowhere else to really come up with any revenue. So the concept that I just mentioned to Lael when we were going out to Dora was, hey, what are your thoughts on the potential of bringing that rate back down to even like 10.85? Just that way you leave a percentage point in there for the commission to have, so that we don't have it maxed out if that's not what the justification is for. I didn't hear what you said today, but
Yeah, so
it's currently at 11.85%.
for non-residential, it's 10.85, and residential 10.557. So if you took that down 100 basis points, you're looking at a difference.
Isn't it 11?
11.85.
Oh, you said 10. And so I was like, if you take it down to
100 basis points, take that down to 10.85 for non-res and 9.557 for res. That difference would be $636,000 difference from your 21 total value, or net taxes. I apologize. So our net taxes would go from $7,085,278 to $6,449,261.
Good gosh. Computer's freaking out.
Unless you may have already put this in some spreadsheet.
Yes, because you have to do your percentage.
Let's see how close I am.
You're a little high. Sorry, it's just taking me just a second to find it. Okay. So this would drop.
So I think my difference is that I don't use 93% collection.
And that's what,
That's very conservative.
yes, and that's what I had noted
Gotcha.
when we had
Okay.
talked. So, and you had upped the projection last year. We started at 93 and then you took us to 95, but we always start lower to see where we're at.
Sure.
So
That makes
those
sense.
are the numbers that I pulled over.
Sure. Okay.
So that's, I have about 6 million is what I plugged in.
Okay. Yeah. That sounds right. And then if you
And these are
only
just-
did 55 basis points and 85 basis points off of your res and non-res, you gain around another 5 to 600,000. So if you maybe just, you could do it in steps, do that first step first, and then see how we go and look and see what GRT does. And then if next year we're still holding well, you can take it down another 50 basis points or so if you were to just take it down the 55 basis points, then you'd be right at 10 and right at 11, or 55 and 85 points.
Miss Hamilton, do you remember how much we moved it up in 15? It was like 3.
I tried to look back and I couldn't find what it was prior, what it was before then, what the rate was. I know we have it somewhere. I can keep digging.
Because I remember it was a very large. How much?
And of course,
You're a 93 and she's a 95.
that keeps throwing me off. I'm sorry. But it's better to be on that conservative side. I agree.
Our charts to always look like this, to
Yes, ma'am.
be just like, we never want to be so under budgeted that we're losing services or not providing the services we need to,
No,
but we're also not in the business of making the advances that we don't want to see.
So that
that's
was a
where-
cut of a half a point on residential. Is that what that was? What did you cut it, Amber?
The last part that she had recommended, I think she said 50 or
Yes. So you
so
would
it goes from 10 point
10.557 to just a flat 10, and on non-res goes from 11.85 just down to a flat 11. So you're taking away that 85 basis points and 55 basis points.
55 basis points.
There they are.
So geniuses, we needed to know Commissioner Lee asked,
15, how much?
how much did we take it up in 2015 when we had to raise the residential rates? Do y'all remember?
And we could only raise it so much, I remember.
We went to the max because
The
it went
max.
to 11.85, and that is the highest you can
I think it
go.
was when from 15 to 16. Do you happen to have that
Yeah.
history? I had 18.
Okay, you can turn on the light.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, right here. Okay.
It would have been
Yeah,
16
so-
rates, but yeah.
What's the buzzers?
Okay.
I know that was miserable. There ain't much grass down there in places.
Okay. So the significant jump actually was 14 to 15.
When we found it.
And we went from res at 10.349
3.
to 11.256. Then in 16, it came back down to 10.873.
Because this is in September that they put the rates, if I remember right, through your office. So you have us do a letter setting a property tax rate, and it was, I want to say in September.
Because we had to do it after we finalized our budget and we discussed it. We knew what was coming up to.
And then after 16, looks like we came back down.
And that's the state that sets the yield control once the commission is done theirs. So y'all would be able, the same thing arguably in September, to set the rate. If y'all chose to change it from the 11.85, then as a commission, y'all would be able to have that.
Amazing. I was glad to
It was horrible. And how many people we had to lay off? How much equipment we had to get rid of? How many of these people had to get rid of their helpers?
Wow.
And these are just
I'll
options.
come
I
in the
mean,
office in 14 January.
we just need y'all to understand all of them are options. I had a brief conversation, like say with Lael, of, hey, think about this. What are your thoughts? And then I spoke with both the assessors, well, both the gentlemen from the assessor's office, even yesterday, just like, hey, what are y'all thoughts? And how do we understand this? Because yield control is very complicated, and it is something that is way beyond me to wrap my head around. And it's something that's done at the level with the Department of Finance Administration being so complicated. So I just want to make sure like y'all are aware of all your options, but our valuations, just to give you perspective, this is what the changes are. So you see the current valuations here of 191 and 427. And to just give you some comparative values for that, from last year's valuation, that the growth is in the non-residential. And this is again where the assessor was sharing the difference of the wind farm type stuff specifically. So in residential valuations, for what we had figured last year, we had 185,942,000. That jumped to the 191,180,000 here. For the non-residential operational, last year's valuations were 257,969,000. That's the 200 million growth that we're seeing in the valuation of the non-residential that is impacting the other.
Not to mention all them people who got those wind turbines, how much stuff they bought.
Now, our oil and gas production went down by about 5 million. I mean, and then the oil and gas equipment went down by about 1 million. So there were decreases obviously in our oil and gas and what we're seeing. And we're not anticipating seeing a significant growth in oil and gas equipment or production. Everything that I'm seeing as far as Roosevelt County goes, the oil companies, their pressure is do more with less. We're not looking at a bunch of new rigs or equipment or investment or anything like that. And none of us have been advised any differently to my knowledge. So we will continue to see flat or a decrease as we're projecting for this year in our valuations.
Since we got the information from Tax and Rev recently about anticipation of the cannabis being on the GRT, was there more information to give us any idea of what that might be looking like coming to our county?
They told us, and in your budget books in revenues, I believe, there is, or no, maybe it's in the memos up front. There is a memo from the state, and this is good. This is on my list, so thank you. So up here, it just says that, let me see. Okay, so there's a memo in there that talks about the opioid abatement funds, which we've already addressed. They need to be in a separate fund. We've took care of that. We've talked about, that'll be great funding sources for MAT because they're very specifically regulated on what to do. So DFA was making us aware of those. Then the next one talks about the mileage and per diem. I hope I put that in there. And then the next one is the Cannabis Act. And the interesting thing is that DFA says, do not budget for any cannabis revenue or expenditures in your preliminary budget submission. They are requesting that all municipalities and counties actually compile this for a period of 3 months before we make any kind of annualized projections. So there is no cannabis dollars figured in at all per the guidelines of the Department of Finance.
So though, it's just so new.
And the
I
new
mean,
has
it's
worn
too many
off.
unknowns.
They talked about the April numbers did not reach what they had projected after the initial sales that were so high, and the early April, the end of April didn't, and it tailed off, and they would have to average 25 million or something per month to hit their $300 million mark that they projected, and they're not on course to do that currently. But again, we're only a month in. So that's why they specifically said do not budget cannabis at all in any of your initial. And I mean, you'll see it even over here to me. They talked about how important this compensating tax was and how great it was going to be for all of us and such when they made all these changes. Well, you look at our compensating tax, and literally we're on par to be somewhere between 20 and 24,000 annualized on a compensating tax. We fared much better when we were receiving the House Bill 6 distribution before they started doing this. And so the compensating tax and some of the changes that they've made with our local distributions simply have not proven fruitful for the county in terms of the GRT collection. So those are the things. Yes, the cannabis remains unknown as far as the projection numbers, but we can tell you for a fact the $200 to $2,000 monthly compensating tax that we see varies greatly in what we're able to record.
I guess it depends on what report you're reading, huh?
Yeah. Well, and I just look at y'all's numbers because that's the one that I trust, because y'all do the journal entries. So at least then we know what's real and what we received.
Yeah, true.
And then again, we've seen a decrease in gasoline tax, and this is in the unincorporated areas. So that's off of reporting. Lael and I have spent hours trying to deal with the state at a level. There's just no rhyme or reason. There's still no understanding on this, but it's all about, again, in New Mexico, your self-rendering state. So it's all about who reports the taxes where and what they're doing. It is self-control. There is nothing that we're able to do at that point. And Lael, was there any of these other numbers you wanted to touch on, like delinquent property tax or the oil and gas production or tax interest? Did you want to highlight any of those?
Not very specifically. I feel like, the delinquent property tax follows kind of the same. I mean, it looks not very on trend when you look at the history. And I feel like with where we're at for budgeting 75, I think that it is conservative enough. As long as we don't run into a recession, I feel we'll be fine.
Projected within like the next year. Sorry.
And I read where we weren't going to be in a recession.
Yeah.
We're going to have to get on the same journals.
That's such a small, I mean, the 75,000 on delinquent property tax is so
It's
small in the scheme of things that one
Yeah,
doesn't cause my
I don't think it's going to
heartburn.
impact our budget
It's more
significantly.
of the property tax that's substantial, and then the gross receipts tax secondarily. Down here on the PILT payments in your revenue book, in your revenue tabs, there is a section for PILTs so that you see where we're at with those and collecting. The one that is getting close, of course, is the San Juan Mesa PILT. And that one is set to term out on December of 2025. So we will be at 153,000 through the 2025, and then that one is done until someone does something different. We've all heard, there's people that are interested or looking at developing and different things, but the county at this point, we haven't received any kind of correspondence or anything from a private entity or another partner or anything along those lines. So that still remains very much unknown. There's a lot of speculation, but there's nothing in writing at this point. We'll just take a little break. There's a few shivering, so.
I turned it on. I'm always cold. I'm hot. Everybody's gonna be hot.
I'm not, but I can see y'all shivering. So, okay. So those are basically the numbers that we pulled from the other, and y'all can see now, what your options are in terms of the tax rates and where y'all want to look at doing all of that. I know Lael actually.
So you can go exactly flat 10 or the flat 11. And that's
about
taking
50.
it down. Pardon?
You said that's about 50 basis points, a little more.
So on your residential, that would be 55 basis points. On your non-res, it would be 85. And then if you look at taking residential down the 100 basis points, you're at 9.557, and non-res would be 10.85.
What were we at initially came in and then they had to increase it? And that's curiosity.
Yeah, we did. But they took it.
It's okay.
They took their papers.
It was from 10.349 residential to
Okay.
11.25. So it was
So, yeah, very
almost
close.
a full percentage. And it was like, well, I just have residential written down from 10.349 to 11.256. And that was in 14 to 15.
So
Commissioner Lee, what were you proposing for it to go to? I mean, that's what you're proposing. That's not what's finalized.
So the difference would be 10. So just the 2 basis points difference from 2014, right? You said?
2014 to 15 is when they said that increased. Yes, ma'am.
So you're real close to what it was back in 2014 if you go to the
The
flat 10 and 11.
I think that would really reflect where the county was back then and then everything that they went through and where we ended up now that he's actually getting termed out. I think that would look really cool.
Yeah, but I think that's almost, I really, I want to put y'all in the mind, things are higher. Now on the vine, I think, instead of flat, 10, flat 11 on residential, like
No,
flat 10 on residential, then the 11 point.
it's 11.85 currently now on your non-res.
Would that be 50 points on each, wouldn't it?
So,
It would. So you'd want to go 50 basis points down on each.
and I don't think you get to specify residential versus non-residential, do you, George? I thought you just set the one rate in the
No.
letter. You set both. Okay. Thank you for clarifying. I'm like, I have very little recollection of when we did this once.
That's what I would like to see is it come down 50 base or I call it 50.
Flat.
Yeah, it's a half base point on each one.
And we've got to keep in mind,
11.85, so 11.35.
the other option would be
George,
to,
you was here doing that. I mean,
When I got welcomed in.
yeah. Don't you think? I mean, with way prices have went up, I mean, it's really not going to move backwards as much as it looks like it would.
It's a 50-50. Never know. I'd hate to be drastic on that.
I would tend to agree with you, Commissioner Lee, on doing the 50 basis points versus the complete 55 and 85 or the 100, because we can always come back and do it again.
keep in mind, it's still under the discretion of the whole board. This is just a proposition. My option would be what Commissioner Lee's recommending. Second option, status quo. Third option is to meet in between what he's recommending and where we're at right now. 50-50, when you hear that, I mean, it's still going to be potentially a gamble if we do move it in any which way.
But yeah, Ms. Hamilton has that chart that you all can plug those numbers in and
I brought that
play
back
with
up,
them very quickly
290
versus me trying to compute.
brought
So
back up
that's going to be a great tool
292,000.
for y'all to use to plug in all the different numbers and options that you may want to consider.
I'd like to see that, but we haven't got to the final end of the budget yet, neither.
That'll probably be a strong deterrent or
Yes, it will.
determination of where you're going to lead on that for sure.
Yep.
Okay.
It's just good to have a strong team where we can all talk about this and like, hey, this is things that it should give you a good indication that this is stuff that is possible at this point to be able to do. Because again, it's not anything that we want to run full because again, if something happens, we have no room for anything at this point. I mean, we are at the max property rate. And so that's a cause of concern for me when you look at there's just such a limit on revenues for county government. And I'm always a big fan of as small a government footprint as possible. So that is what we're trying to support. Everyone is operating so efficiently at this point that those are the numbers that are options that we just wanted to present.
Well, you know, in 2014 when we was looking at it, in 15 when it happened, we did that to try to save employees and jobs and keep the county going. That's why I wouldn't want to just drop a bunch of, because I don't want to hinder our employees anymore with the price of living. But I would like to return, if it's possible in the budget, fellow commissioners, back to our residents who paid the more taxes to catch us back up. That's my reasoning.
My reasoning behind it, that's why I was asking for dates and amounts and percent, all of the above, because it would just show a lot as our veteran commissioner that's going to be leaving us in December. I mean, he did go through it all, his past 8 years, and we were there once, had to get away from there, and if we can go back to where we were at, I mean, I just think that would be really cool.
Mr. Lopez, I appreciate you that, but the real work was done by Miss Hamilton, George, Lale, the clerk back then, cutting the sheriff, cutting. I mean, yeah, we stepped up here and made the final decisions, but those are the people that had to work through what we did. So
Well, that's my whole point. Amber said it best. It's the team. It took a team effort, and that's why the unit, all of you guys. So no, I'm not trying to bypass that without by no means. But yeah, it's very clear that it took a team, and we were blessed. I know I was blessed to inherit a lot of it from my predecessor. So
I think there's a few more we got to present on. Thank you.
Yes,
Is there
absolutely.
anything else that
Yeah, I think we're settled up here. So, and you know where I'm at. If you have any other questions of me, just stop in and see me. And appreciate your consideration today.
Lael, thank you for running through those numbers.
Can you borrow my boat? Yes, sir. Let's go.
Let's go.
Thank you, Lael. Okay. All right. So, manager, but and I don't know. I think I stuck it in there. Okay, y'all want to take a break? Okay, so in the manager budget, you'll see like Sean touched on the HR compliance and risk management, all the different things that just standard HR. There's a little bit of growth that you'll see in what was budgeted with Encode because we also picked up it's all IT, but you have the Encode that's the same as last year, but then you have the Bonfire, which was the software that y'all approved last meeting for the contract management software and such. And then we're doing more advertising with Indeed for employees and everything like that. So there's just a little bit of growth there that Sean asked for. Just a little bit of growth in fuel and vehicle maintenance as we're going to be needing some tires on the unit, the Explorer that we all share. We did have to increase because we are going to have more training for mileage and per diem, and we're going to have some additional training costs. So we know that there's going to be, with Carol retiring, there's going to be a significant need for retraining on all of our grant funds and everything like that, like with our local government road fund grants. Local government road fund, I'm trying to think, they provide training and that's all in-house. So those are annual funds that we get and we just have to continue to close out those projects and everything along those lines. So we have that in there. And then I I don't think there was any other major. We don't have education because I'm trying to figure out one more of the certifications with Carol. So we'll have to plug that one in. Sorry. She's got some healthcare designations that it's going to be hard to find anybody with those. So we're finding out what we need to and not. And then Chase just set this small little 3,000 budget down here just in case we have needs for any kind of small equipment for computers, things along those lines, UPS backups. So that is pretty flat growth you can see overall. The only other part that is growing is this funds right here. So before we had 40 students, 4 coordinators, everything. Of course, the rates have gone up and we got up to 50 students, 4 coordinators and such. So that part-time salary is plugged in. And I highlighted it because some of it could come over and we could see it in this fiscal year because those students are actually starting work the end of May. So we know some will come in May and June, and then some will be in July. So it'll kind of be like the shared thing that we had this year between fiscal years. You'll just see those numbers are reflected up there. And those rates are all set by the state. I think we get to pay the students $12.50. Yeah, $12.50. Last year was $11.50, I think. So I think it's 12. So those are the things that are still to be determined there. Pretty easy one. So if you go back to commission, we've already talked about y'all's IT support. I have not plugged in anything for mileage and per diem. I wasn't sure what y'all wanted to have budgeted there. We plugged in approximate numbers on insurance and again, a guesstimate on unemployment insurance. We know there's still the potential to see spikes in those claims because of all the unemployment claims that the state has been processing. So that's still to be determined. We just have to monitor that year to year. The audit contract, we will have a single audit for fiscal year 22. Y'all have already approved the contract, but we wanted to plug that budget number in here. And then professional services, legal fees, the Arizona Coalition. It's very much the same things as what we had last year. It's just I wanted to touch on last year we had the regional mental health facility feasibility study budgeted at $5,300 because the initial cost was based on populations and such. Phase 2, we don't have any kind of idea yet of what the funding will look like. We know that phase 2 will probably be close to about 3 times the cost. So instead of about 60,000, it's probably going to be somewhere around 180 to 190,000 for phase 2, which is the planning, the documents, the construction, the architecture, like very much that getting everything shovel ready for that next phase of the project. And we may have some state funding pots that can offset a portion of that and then only have a portion for local government. So we talked about how at the end of May, we should have more of the feasibility report and possibly a joint meeting with several governments. That's where more of that information will come out and the next steps for the feasibility. So again, I will still need y'all to let me know what y'all want to do in terms of mileage per diem. Education, we have been running about 2,000, but we have not had any, I mean, it's just been New Mexico counties. We haven't done anything with the National Association of Counties or WIR, whatever the regional thing. Commissioner Lopez, you're going to be more familiar. Like some of those things. The other big part right here, of course, is the negotiation that is ongoing with the city. So we know that they have put in a request for an increase in funding for fire and ambulance. All that is budgeted in there right now is the $7,000 that we're recommending to the Dora, Elida, Floyd, and Causey. Then, of course, the $3,500 two transfers are in the other section of y'all's budget. So that one's still a very big unknown there. and you still have your debt service in there. And then your road transfers are projected at about 1.25 million from the road budget y'all saw this morning. And this right here is 180,000 for the equipment they need. You have 100,000 of equipment coming in, but this down here, part of this transfer in from the capital outlay fund that y'all have designated that are possibles, 80,000 in road equipment, 200,000 in the fairgrounds and maintenance, and 200,000 for what's needed at the detention center. So of course that if y'all transfer that from the capital outlay fund instead of using general fund monies, as those are the one-time expenses y'all designated that fund for, then that would offset the difference between the revenues and expenses as well. So I can't give you a final number until we have all of these things in place to go work on. So these are things I need y'all's direction on. Are you wanting to utilize your capital outlay funds as you've designated? I know you've authorized the fairgrounds work to get started. So are y'all ready to move some of those funds for that? I will tell you right now, all we're doing is losing money in the market because of the investment lail. It kills her to record the negative each time.
The sooner the better. So I would support that if it's allocated and we've already approved it.
Okay, y'all have it in your
Soon,
savings, and that's the
right.
role. And it's just hard to like. It's sitting there. These are the things that we had it sitting there for. Yes. So if you have that, the detention center funding that is needed is the insulation in that back section. So the add-on that happened from 2006. So the big day rooms, kind of where we walk through the gate, really that back half, and then the stucco of the building. Now that price may change a little bit because I had them getting quotes for the budget by the time we get this done in July or something. So it'll be a little bit of a moving target, but that would be another thing that it's possible to pull from your capital outlay funds for those. And we would just reflect those as transfers in like we're doing right here. Okay.
So do you need to fill in that? Or the commissioners?
Yes, I need to understand like education, travel, per diem, like what y'all are wanting to look at.
I would just go back to pre-pandemic and whatever numbers you had in there then, just transfer it back to this system. And I still think, that would be adequate. I mean, I know I can't.
So we budgeted 1,000 a commissioner, and you'll see that we didn't pre-pandemic. We didn't typically use that much. And some of y'all, travel on your own and do different things. But the history right here, I think it was about the most that we used was in fiscal year 19. We budgeted 1,000 a commissioner, and that was I think when we made Washington D.C. So we would have went to the White House briefing on that one for the counties. So that would be 5,000 there. You didn't ask.
And you'll have a new commissioner next year that'll have to do some additional training.
That doesn't. Nope, not in this budget. But that's before before they assume the role, so that's not. Yeah, it happens in December. Well, there'll be the regular stuff. There won't be anything new. So BIPO is something that we asked them to do. Well, like you all did it before you ever went in. You attended it in December before you ever took the seat in January. So that wasn't something that the county assumed the role on or the cost. The hotel was on them, and then we just went and attended. But it's usually 2 days that we did BIPO. And Commissioner Savage and I got to do it online in my office, and it was super awesome because it saved us travel and everything. It was so easy.
They broke into like 5 cars and I leave
At the hotel. So education, typically 2,000 has been adequate to cover enough of, because inevitably not all 5 of y'all can attend all, like both conferences and those kind of things. So do y'all feel comfortable with about 2,000 like last year? I think that's everything in here. Yeah, so that's after taking care of all your employees and doing everything. We're upside down about 117,000. So
Is that cutting,
that's the adjustments to the property taxes. The only thing that doesn't have in is, I mean, again, we're upside down 117. It doesn't have any of the city negotiation and the ultimate, like how all of that happens. If we end up paying more for fire, EMS, dispatch, if they end up paying more for detention and the services that we provide. So this is a much smaller target than what we've had to do in years past. Unknown. You won't know until you're done.
100 and something right now, right?
Mhm.
What was 800,000 at one time? What do you mean 800,000?
No, we were about 1.6, 1.4. We've had some big years.
That, he was like,
Well, and y'all heard a lot of presentations and asks and everything today. So if there's more that we need to look at trimming, or there's something that you're like, hey, we need to wait. The other thing is this doesn't have anything on in terms of if there is a construction requirement for the sheriff's office building. Again, that could be a capital, the use of the capital funds that we have
That's what I was fixing to
designated
ask.
for that.
Is any of
Um,
that the capital funds on any of the software? I mean, the COVID.
That's all in a separate. This is just general fund.
So we haven't got into those funds
Yeah,
for
those are in separate ones. So when we looked at those other spreadsheets over here,
I know are the
that's separate. This is only general fund that funds all the typical stuff. So this is your main responsibility. The rest of the numbers all pretty much govern themselves, but you have to see all of them. General fund is where all your staff is, because this also includes the transfers out, like the transfer for the road to help. So this is basically 401 and 402. And this is what this all takes care of.
and well, what I'm asking is none of the COVID money is in the revenues to cover the software. And
No,
stuff.
that's, you can't be in anything of general fund.
But
Absolutely
but
not.
some of their ask can be covered with some of that money.
Their asks were included in that budget. So you didn't see any of their asks of that in the general fund.
Okay.
Those were all over here in the American Recovery funds that we talked about. So the asks that they had were in a separate fund of 417.
These that we give to the fire departments and whatnot, can we not take that out of that, what is that called? The American Recovery Fund? Yeah, can't we take that out of there because it would be emergency services?
Well, what they are telling us is when you've been historically doing this and it's part of your regular budget, they don't want you supplanting those funds somewhere else. Because again, it's all about, these are just one-time funds. We're only seeing these funds one time historically. So they're wanting those to be invested in things like your emergency operations, your security system, your personnel that y'all did the ARPA compensation for and those stipends, things along those lines, they're okay with. And I can ask and look, but it's also that's 28 plus. So really, it's what 6 times 42,000. So it's really not a substantial.
No, but it would pay for a drone.
Well, but yeah, and that's already in here. So that's in
I'm
your
just
ARPA
saying it would
side.
weigh out the
It's in that
difference.
other side. That's what I was asking.
And I did increase that, like y'all were talking, to have 2 drones, one for each, like one for GIS, one for the SO. So that's in there.
Some of that American funds, reckon we could use it to add on to the sheriff's department to build a more COVID safe conference room. With take it right off the back. Just like the hospital built their add-ons.
We can look at that because they have capital specifically regulated in here, and there's a whole section. So I'll have to go back and review.
Because that would be great. Just to add on to the what I would call the south side.
I've got to reiterate, now that I have it in my mind again, because I've been so forgetful lately. I have a note here just to emphasize to please combine all the requests that are inclusive of the rescue plan, please, because you guys, it was well thought. They're justifiable and they're going to be eligible. So we should be able to rock and roll through that right away and like not even have to really debate it because it's monies that we've got to spend. I'm going to keep saying that we've got to spend them.
And all that you're seeing is what's representing about the first half, because I am not comfortable trusting the federal government in any way, shape, or form. So until we receive the second payment, I don't want any of, I just don't feel comfortable coming to y'all and asking y'all to allocate funds until we receive them. So, hey, we've received the 1.7. This is what we have. This is what we've allocated. We're living within our means. Then when we receive the second payment in December, that's great. Then we can come back around another time. And there's little things like the clerk's office needed disinfecting wands, you know, and things like that. Those were very low cost. Y'all have already approved those. They were like $600 or something. So just making sure those get ordered and are here in time for the primary election. So we're just trying to stay within the budget for now. And then as soon as the federal government does exactly what they promised, then y'all get to spend another 1.7 million.
Well,
roads in the fairgrounds, the parking lot over there at the fairgrounds, we already are going to go ahead and start since they're right here in Clovis, right?
Yes, we
Okay.
just have to work on, it'll be tomorrow before we can really issue some POs and do all of that. But Mr. Spinks and Mr. Lovato are working on all of those. So we will have all that work getting started.
I want the fair and the fairgrounds to look nice this year.
$5,000, I'll be shot with a taser.
whatever happened to that, Commissioner Lee, the beer and wine initiative for the fairgrounds? Whatever happened to that, Amber?
A dunk tape.
I mean, you two have been talking all day and me and Ron not here yet. I mean, I told Damon to come get me. Good.
Will you turn on the light?
Is your wife coming there to you? Yeah, somebody will. Dennis? No.
She's in Dallas.
Are you gonna go ahead and walk home? Hey, you need to start now.
I'll moonwalk.
Dennis had a good point though.
Oh, everybody ignored it. I'm not even gonna do myself.
I think it has to be.
I didn't hear it.
Somebody with a picnic
It was, there was a certain platform from a certain commissioner back in the day that his initiative before he left office was to try to have a little more of quality of life at our local events here in our county. And that's when we all supported, with the exception of one commissioner, we supported the beer and wine initiative to have during events at our fairgrounds. Whatever happened to that? Because not only did it not come to light, it's been put under not even a carpet or a rug. It's been put, hell, I think it was buried somewhere.
Now let's touch on that. I've had numerous phone calls of certain buildings in the county, venues that were glad that we did that so they could serve at functions, weddings, that wasn't able to do that before. It's just I don't think we've had anybody rent the fairgrounds that would want to get somebody with a beer and wine license.
And if you'll recall too, so the initiative actually was to put it on the ballot and then the county went wet. And so that all was taken care of. But y'all did not ever change the policy for the fairgrounds rental because what we ran into was liability issues with the insurance because the Supreme Court of New Mexico ruled in case law that there was a case. I wish Randy was here. So there was a case that I recall that the worker of the convenience store served the guy that was already intoxicated, and then they in turn came back and got sued. And they came after the convenience store and everything else. So there's a huge implied liability that will be shifted to the county. That even if you have a hold harmless agreement and you have a contract in place, they're going to come after the county as well because y'all opened up your facilities for the alcohol. And so at that point after that, everything has just kind of been put on hold. If that's something y'all still wish to see and do some more work on, then just know that that's a big lawsuit that is like a exposure that's opened up. And we have such a significant population of trial attorneys. It's just extremely litigious. And there have been several suits brought in New Mexico following the Supreme Court ruling on that. And I can certainly ask Randy to kind of give you some more information at the May meeting if you want to revisit that, because it's been a couple years.
Have we had anybody come in who asked to rent the fairgrounds that asked if they could serve out there?
No, actually, the Fair Board asked that y'all not change the policy because the Fair Board does not want to deal or handle, and they have had an extreme, from my understanding from Fair Board leadership, the board itself, the majority does not want alcohol on the board, and they certainly don't want cannabis. So they would prefer having no alcohol, no cannabis up, no smoking everywhere throughout the grounds. And then, of course, the other issue is it's supposed to be the family event. And so they feel like if they have the alcohol, like that was a concern that they have had. So they have requested no change to the policy.
That's well respected. A board is a board, but this whole initiative was brought upon, and I don't want to be the devil's advocate because it really wasn't even my initiative, but the community wants it. People want to come into our community want it. When we talk about keeping up with the Joneses, everywhere you go in Texas has that opportunity.
Clovis.
Anywhere in New Mexico has that opportunity. It's
Very
about expanding our horizons, and if it's regulated and there's a good way to do it. Yes, you can throw out all the negatives all day long. I mean, that's the story of our lives. Everybody focuses on the negatives. We really got to focus on the positive outcomes from it as well. So yeah, it was an initiative from a certain commissioner that I stood with for 6 years. And it's sad that it just gets thrown under, I'm not going to say under a table or a rug. It got buried in kind of in a hush-hush kind of way. So I'm going to carry on with that initiative because there's a lot of community members, a lot of youngsters, a lot of students, a lot of military personnel, a lot of individuals. They always question why Clovis is ahead of us at all things for little things like that. And I know we live in a conservative Bible Belt community, but you don't have to drink. And you don't have to listen to the entertainment and music and all the good things that come out of that.
If it's
So-
something y'all want on the agenda, there's no,
How
I mean,
about-
it's
Would you reach out to Clovis's manager and see how they work at at the fairgrounds there, what kind of insurance they carry and how they handle their situation. That wouldn't be somebody neighbor that would go by.
Also, contact other counties our size or smaller that allow things like that for quality of life, for extra things. If we can get some input from them, i.e. Lee County, Lovington, New Mexico, Las Vegas, New Mexico, Silver City, New Mexico, we can go to all parts of the state and then places in Texas. Anyway, Mr.
happy
Chairman,
to
fellow
ask.
commissioners, I have got to go. See y'all.
Are we about done? Is there any more? Come see us. I hope not. I think there was one more I didn't have marked off my list.
Revenues, 401 general budget.
I mean,